Meeting law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. And the first item on the agenda, request authorization for the approval of the minutes of September 13th, 2018.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Vote. Ayes have it. Item number 2, request authorization to enter into a contract with Hub Parking Technology USA, Inc. for the furnishing and installing of a parking access and revenue control system at the parking facilities located at the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park in the approximate amount of $343,155. Devin.
Director, Madam Secretary, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for this first opportunity to appear before you. I'm Devin Quirk. I'm on my third week as the Director of Real Estate here at the BPDA. I'm certainly excited to be here. For my previous 8 years at the city, I know that I'm joining a great team of people, and I'm looking forward to the important issues ahead. So tonight I'm here to request your approval to enter into a contract with Hub Technology for new parking access and revenue control equipment. I know a lot of work has happened over many months gone into producing this new system and procuring it, and I can take credit for none of it. So I want to thank Larry Mamoli, Michelle Goldberg, Sean Nahill, John Lynch, and all the other staff who have helped to make this happen. In brief, the purpose of this project is to procure and install new equipment to enhance the control, revenue collection, customer service, and other aspects of both EDIC and BPDA parking facilities. Having best-in-class parking systems is important for several key reasons. First, it will provide better customer service for people using our parking facilities, including mobile access, reservation systems, secure payment tools, and other features. Secondly, it will also provide us better tools for management of our parking lots, including real-time access to information on who's accessing our lots, revenue performance management, consolidated reports from both BPDA and EDIC parking facilities. And I've come to learn that this is really important in protecting the fiscal health of our agency, because a lot of our revenue is a solid and important significant revenue source for the agency. The invitation for bid was competitively advertised in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30, Section 39M. And after review of the 2 bids received, the BPDA determined that Hub Parking Technology was the lowest responsible eligible bidder. So I'm therefore asking your approval to enter into a contract with Hub Parking Technologies for the removal and installation of parking systems at EDIC-owned lots for the amount of $343,155. Thank you very much, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Devin, are there any questions from the board?
I have a question. How is this affecting the number of jobs that we have at our parking garages?
So, John, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe it is not actually affecting the number of jobs at all. It's affecting only the technology used to collect revenue and actually measure access. It's more of a technology procurement than it is management procurement, which we already have ABM parking management staffing our lots.
So it talks about decreasing our costs. Is that the cost of our current equipment that we're decreasing?
So management costs associated with maintaining the actual equipment we have today. We think going with newer equipment will reduce the repair costs and things like that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Devin.
Thank you very much.
Item number 3, request authorization to enter into a 3rd amendment to the contract with the University of Massachusetts Donahue Institute to assist in the feasibility study of career pathways in the creative economy in an amount not to exceed $8,000. Lynn.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Thank you for having me speak here before you this afternoon. My name is Lynn Sanders, and I am Assistant Deputy Director of Special Projects for the Mayor's Office of Workforce Development. This memorandum requests that the Office of Workforce Development, a division of the EDIC doing business as the BPDA, be authorized to enter into a 3rd amendment to the contract for professional services with University of Massachusetts Donahue Institute to increase the contract by $8,000 and extend the term by 6 months to provide for additional work and services. OWD staff initially issued a request for proposals to procure the services for research and or a consultant team to conduct a feasibility study of higher education and training programs that provide career pathways in the creative economy sector. The BPDA board approved the selection of UMass Donahue Institute at its December 14th, 2017 meeting. The original contract amount was $59,822 and is supported by both the Neighborhood Jobs Trust and Emerson College. Services began on January 12, 2018. As the work progressed, OWD became more interested in A, expanding the geographical boundaries of the labor market analysis to cover Greater Boston, B, adding at least one major presentation to City of Boston senior staff, and C, increasing the number of total interviews with key stakeholders, including more people from the business community. UMass Donahue Institute was agreeable to these requests and proposed a small increase to cover the cost of additional work and services, and the BPDA board approved a first amendment in the amount of $6,000. Subsequently, as a result of unforeseen delays and small changes requested by the working group, both BPDA and the consultant mutually agreed to amend the contract by extending the termination date until September 30th, 2018. No additional compensation for that extension was required. As UMass Donahue Institute has completed an initial draft of an inventory and resources focused on serving non-conventional individuals and students interested in creative economy careers, OWD staff feels good progress has been made, honing in on a product that will be useful for the City of Boston. All parties now have a clear vision of where the project is going. To bring the project to completion, there are several additional activities outside of the original scope of work that the Office of Workforce Development is requesting from UMass Donahue Institute. First, extensive analysis of creative economy occupations based on Burning Glass data, including leading companies hiring in creative occupations and requirements they're specifying. Second, American Community Survey analysis of job holders in creative economy occupations, including race, ethnicity, and gender. Third, additional interviews with Roxbury Community College, Massachusetts Bay Community College, and Bunker Hill Community College, as well as anticipated additional interviews with employers and possibly additional with Emerson College and Mass Art about alternative to four-year resources that they offer. Lastly, a new emphasis is being placed on non-conventional individuals and students that has required extensive reworking of the framework and looking at programs and resources geared towards this group. Following the review and additional fleshing out of the inventory, OWD anticipates that UMass Donahue Institute will be able to lay out career pathways that provide the city and its residents with clear options for moving forward towards more gainful jobs in creative occupations and industries. OWD and UMass Donahue Institute have discussed these requests at length, and UMass Donahue Institute is agreeable to the proposed small increase to cover the additional work and services. OWD is now requesting to enter a third amendment to the original contract. OWD has reviewed the proposed $8,000 increase and the supporting detail provided by UMass Donahue Institute and believes it's reasonable and would provide greater benefit to the study. It is recommended that the BPDA be authorized to enter into a third amendment to this contract with UMass Donahue Institute to allow for the provision of the additional work.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you explain what a non-conventional individual or student is?
Sure. So basically students who aren't looking to go on a four-year college path. So a lot of the work, the initial focus, because it was a partnership with Emerson and Mass Art, a lot of the initial focus was looking at the four-year college path. So part of the reason we're doing more interviews with the community colleges and also looking at alternative options outside of the four-year path that are offered by Emerson and Mass Art.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Lynn. Item number 4, request authorization to establish an Economic Development and Industrial Corporations Capital Reserve Fund. Bob.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, Director Golden, Secretary Pohemus. I stand before you this evening to make a request regarding set-asides for capital reserve funding. As it stands, between both the BRA and the EDIC entity. We have approximately $200 million of future capital reserve needs. As we plan for those things and do more long-term planning, the idea is to start to reserve funds or set aside funds in order to do the future planning for those capital needs. Today, as I speak, there's approximately $10 million in a capital approved queue. So that would be the first set aside. As we review and get deeper and further along into the future capital needs, there'll be requests to continue to add funds to the capital reserve fund as we can do that via operations, sales of real estate, or maybe later on some debt structure. Those are all things that we're going to need to do as we do future planning. So the idea is for both the BRA and EDICs to establish this capital reserve fund.
Great. Okay, thank you, Bob. Are there any questions from the board?
I have a question. How restricted are these funds once they're set aside in the capital fund?
They are not permanently restricted. They would be temporarily restricted via the board. So once funds are decided to go in there through a board authorization, if we wanted to change that, I believe we'd have to come back to the board and ask the board for a difference on that. So temporarily restricted would be the category or the nomenclature that we would give these accounts.
And Bob, how documented is the $200 million worth of pent-up capital needs?
I'm not sure I understand.
Is it like a list? Do we have a current list?
There's a very thick volume of all the capital work that we are looking at. It's, I don't know, there's 40 or 50 projects in there. It's well done. Engineering has prepared it. We could talk about that at some point in time, but it really does address infrastructure issues, all the waterfront sites that we have, Long Wharf, the Navy Yard, EDIC, the building ownership that we have, those kinds of things. So it's pretty thorough.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Item number 5, personnel. Jeanette?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. We have a few items for your consideration on the EDIC agenda. We have 6 appointments for your consideration with all details in the board memos. Patikal Helik, Accountant 1 with the Administration and Finance Division, Budget and Finance Department, with a start date of October 29th. In the Planning Division, we have 2 new employees, Mira Dian, Senior Architect, Urban Designer 2, with the Urban Design Department, and Nick Schmidt, Senior Transportation Planner 2, in the Transportation and Infrastructure Planning Department, both starting October 29th. In the Compliance Division, we have 2 new employees, Denise St. Vistal, Housing Compliance Assistant, starting October 15th, and Takara Hamilton, Boston Resident Jobs Policy Compliance Assistant, starting November 5th. In the Research Division, Kelly McGee, Research Manager, Research Department, who will be starting her new position October 15th. We have 2 employment service contract agreements for your consideration with details listed in the board memos. They are Manuel Esquivel Echeverria from the Planning Division and Sherry Lee from the Administration and Finance Division. We have 1 status change for your consideration with details listed in the board memo. Hugo Solis, Senior Staff Attorney in the Office of General Counsel. We have 5 travel items for your consideration with details listed in the board memos. They are Tim Davis, Housing Policy Manager from the Compliance Division, has 2 trips. And from the OWD Division, Office of Financial Empowerment, we have 2 travelers, Sharon Tolchinsky, Bridge to Hospitality Program Manager, and Alan Gentle, Roxbury Resource Center Manager. From the Administration and Finance Division, William Nickerson, Senior Finance Manager in the Financial Services Department. We also have 2 departures. Cynthia Dorta Canonis, Urban Designer 2 from the Planning Division, and Natalia Urtubey, Executive Director, Imagine Boston from the Economic Development Division. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved. Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jeanette. Item number, well, we need a motion to adjourn the EDIC meeting.
I move we adjourn the EDIC meeting.
Okay,
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. The open meeting law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. And the first item is request authorization for the approval of the minutes of September 13, 2018 meeting. Motion's in order.
So moved. Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Item number 2. I'm going to read the next 3 of them because they're requests for public hearings. Item number 2, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on November 15, 2018 at 5:30 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the application for the Old Colony Phase 3 B4 Limited Partnership, Old Colony Phase 3 B9 Limited Partnership, and Old Colony Phase 3C Limited Partnership, Chapter 121A projects located in South Boston. Item number 3, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on November 15, 2018 at 5:40 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the development plan for Fort Plan Development Area number 120 at 144 Addison Street, East Boston. Item number 4, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on November 15, 2018 at 5:50 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the development plan for Plan Development Area number 121, Kenmore Square redevelopment, and to consider the Kenmore Square redevelopment as a development impact project. A motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 5, Board of Appeal. Jeff, are there any changes?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Secretary Paul Hemus. There are 51. No changes have been made to the package. These will cover the ZBA's hearings for the month of October.
Okay, are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved. Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jeff. Item number 6, request authorization to enter into a contract with Kittleson and Associates, Inc. for the Alston-Brighton Mobility Study in an amount not to exceed $528,000.
Chairman Burke, Vice Chairman Rojas, Director Golden, Secretary Bohemus, and members of the board. You may recall that back in June, the board authorized staff to issue the RFP for the AB Mobility Study. While the recent pace of development in Alston and Brighton is adding vibrancy, economic development, and much-needed housing to the area, it's also increasing demands on the transportation network. The purpose of the AB Mobility Study is to analyze existing and future mobility conditions and, working in concert with the community, develop strategies to improve mobility for all modes of travel. In response to the RFP, we received 6 proposals and interviewed all 6 firms. The Interdepartmental Review Committee found Kittleson and Associates to have the most advantageous proposal based on their qualifications, related experience, and track record in performing similar work in Boston and other cities. As you may recall, Kittleson is currently leading the transportation work on Plan Glover's Corner. An important product of the AB Mobility Study will be a menu of priority transportation improvements that BPDA staff can ask developers to build or contribute to as mitigation for Article 80 projects. This will allow us to be more strategic about Article 80 mitigation in these neighborhoods. We'll also be doing something new as part of the scope of work. We're setting aside a portion of the contract for as-needed consulting to plan and design new transportation improvements. So, for example, if we determine that a new traffic signal, a crosswalk, or a bike lane could bring tangible relief and benefits, we can ask the consultant to design these improvements under this contract, helping get the improvement into the ground more quickly. We actually kicked off the AB mobility study at an open house in early September, attended by well over 100 people, so we're already underway on this project, and we intend to complete the study by spring of 2018 as shown in this timeline. So to conclude, staff is pleased to recommend that the director award and execute a contract with Kittleton Associates to prepare the AB mobility study. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Tad. Are there any questions from the board?
Yes. Hi, Tad. I'm always curious about the timing of these studies and how we decide when to do them, because there's already been so much development in Alston Brighton. So can you talk a little bit about this? Is this behind the development, or, you know, and is it going to be incorporating the 14 acres that Harvard is going to be developing? So I have two questions. One is the timing, and one is the Harvard 14 acres.
So I'll start with the second question first. As we move into the study, one of the things we're doing is putting together sort of an inventory of existing conditions, and part of that includes all existing plans out there. So the ERC, Harvard's ERC, will definitely be part of that, as will the larger institutional plan for Harvard, as will the Alston I-90 interchange study, as will the Guest Street study. All of that will become background information that we use on this study. And then in terms of timing, a couple of things. As you know, we have a lot of plans underway, and there are a lot of plans in the queue. We're getting to these as quickly as we possibly can. I would also say that there's even more development coming in the door now for Alston Brighton. We don't see that spigot shutting off anytime soon. So we do think this is in plenty of time to shape future development and to bring mitigation measures that will improve quality of life in the neighborhood.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 7, request authorization to enter into a contract with Jones Lang LaSalle Americas, Inc. for the development of funding and financing models for the implementation of climate-resilient coastal design solutions for East Boston in an amount not to exceed $50,000. Chris.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Executive Secretary Polhemus. Last December, the Boston Planning and Development Agency, in coordination with the city's Environment Department, was awarded a $50,000 grant from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs Planning Assistant Grant Program to assist in the development of financial models and mechanisms to advance the implementation of district-scale coastal resilient design solutions for East Boston. This project will function to further implement the City of Boston's 2017 Climate Resilient Solutions for East Boston and Charlestown report. This report provides a technical analysis of highly vulnerable waterfront areas of these communities and protective shoreline design recommendations. The project will explore practical and feasible models to finance, construct, and maintain district-scale flood protection measures. We'll also engage key property owners, relevant city and state agencies, and local stakeholders in the insurance and finance industry to determine potential means of funding these shoreline projects and the policy mechanisms to ensure their viability. Regarding the RFP and consultant selection process, the BPDA board authorized the secretary to advertise an RFP to engage a consultant team at the February 6, 2018 board meeting. On July 2nd, 2018, the BPDA issued an RFP for consultant services. Responses were received on July 27th from the Cadmus Group, IMG Rebel, GZA Geoenvironmental, Quantified Ventures, and Jones Lang LaSalle Americas. On July 31st, an RFP selection committee comprised of staff from the BPDA and the Mayor's Office of Environment, Energy, and Open Space reviewed the RFP responses. And based upon the evaluation criteria, all respondents were interviewed on September 7th and 11th. The selection committee evaluated the proposals based upon project manager qualifications, experience of the project team with relevant projects and project tasks, local knowledge, project approach and management, content of the proposal and oral presentation, and allocation of resources and project schedule. As a result of the evaluation, Jones Lang LaSalle Americas was selected as the most advantageous respondent. In the selection of JLL, the selection committee members noted the respondents' depth of understanding of the Boston real estate market, experience with innovative finance mechanisms, and public-private partnerships, as well as complex infrastructure projects. Accordingly, the BPDA staff recommends that the director be authorized to enter into a contract for consultant services with Jones Lang LaSalle in the amount of $50,000 for this project.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved. Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Item number 8, request authorization to petition the zoning commission to adopt a map amendment to zoning map 7A, 7B, 7C, and D, and Article 51, Alston Brighton Neighborhood District, with respect to the St. Gabriel's Conservation Protection Subdivision. Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. As you may recall, on April 13th, 2017, the board authorized the director to petition the Boston Zoning Commission to adopt a map and text amendments to the zoning map 7A, B, 7C, 7D, and Article 51 of the Alston Brighton Neighborhood District with respect to the St. Gabriel's Conservation Protection Subdistrict. Today's staff is requesting that the board authorize the director to petition the Boston Zoning Commission to adopt just the map amendment, which you see here in the presentation in orange. This is the CPS. This is the St. Gabriel's CPS area. This dotted black line is the proposed project, 139, 149 Washington Street, that's associated with this. If you have any questions, I'm here to take those, and Jeff Hampton is here from Planning and Zoning as well.
Okay, thank you, Lance. Are there any questions from the board?
I have a question. So I just want to clarify, this is just for the map amendment, and then
Right.
the actual project comes.
It'll come
still
afterwards,
before, and
exactly.
that's- Okay.
Okay, if there's no further questions and a motion is in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, Lance. Item number 9, request authorization to petition the zoning commission to adopt a text amendment to Article 62, Charlestown Neighborhood District, with respect to the maximum building height allowed within the planned development area.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ted Schwartzberg. I'm the neighborhood planner for Charlestown. I'm joined by my colleague Raul DeVerge from the development review team. We're here today to request permission to petition the zoning commission for a text amendment for Article 62, the article for the Charlestown Neighborhood District. The geographic scope that this impacts is just where PDAs are allowed, planned development areas, and that only covers the local industrial districts in Charlestown. And the larger context is that we have no proposed change to the floor area ratio. If you notice on this map, the area shaded in yellow-orange, that is where the local industrial zoning district is. And if you keep your eye on that map as I flip over to the next one, the local industrial district is a good proxy for the area that in this map in 1867 was all water. This is Miller's Creek. And so the big picture here is that the historic residential fabric of Charlestown is not impacted geographically by this change, and most of our concerned stakeholders were residential stakeholders who live in this part of Charlestown. The change that we are going to seek at the Zoning Commission is a change to the height, and only for portions that are removed from Rutherford Avenue and Cambridge Street. And Rutherford Avenue is generally considered a buffer between that historic fabric and the industrial area, and the change that we seek is to allow a maximum planned development area height of 275 feet with the highest habitable floor of 250 feet. We were here, my team was here a few months ago on this same topic, and we revisited it with the community and tried to get to the bottom of some concerns that the community had. And as a result, we had 3 community meetings, the first one in June, where we tried to disaggregate concerns about density versus height. There was a desire for more open space, but there was also a concern about added density, added floor area, given that there hasn't been a major planning study in the area recently, and there were concerns about ability of infrastructure to support additional density. So we realized that we could address the goal of having additional open space represented by green in this chart, and maintaining existing density by holding the FAR at existing 2.0. That was our June workshop. We went back out again in early September, and we actually did an exercise with folks where we had them stack boxes and lay out what green space might look like to illustrate the concept. And we got pretty good buy-in for additional height, again, holding at the same density. So we had our final meeting about 2.5 weeks ago, where we visualized what these heights might actually look like. And we gamed it so that we showed views at what is the most impactful views of additional height on the residential part of Charlestown. This is the top of the hill on Bunker Hill Avenue, so the highest point. And this is a visualization of what a 250-foot tower might look like in the local industrial area. And then on the next slide, we showed what a 350-foot tower might look like. And it's a little hard to see in this lighting, but they're there just on the horizon. And generally, this idea was well received. And so based on that discussion, we decided to go ahead and seek permission to petition for a maximum height of 275 feet. And again, that would only be for the areas shaded in blue. Right now we have 2 planned development areas. One is 32 Cambridge Street, which is a project that's under construction, and the other one is Hood Park, which is right in here. That's another planned development area, but this would impact the discussion of heights for any future planned development areas in this part of Charlestown. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Item number 10, request authorization to petition the Zoning Commission to adopt a text and map amendment to Article 27T, East Boston Interim Planning Overlay District. Christina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. I'm Christina Rico, Senior Planner in the Department of Downtown and Neighborhood Planning. Earlier this year, Mayor Walsh announced that the BPDA, in close partnership with the City of Boston, would initiate a neighborhood-wide comprehensive planning study in East Boston. Guided by Imagine Boston 2030, the planning process would produce a framework to predictably shape the future of the neighborhood and identify opportunities to preserve, enhance, and grow. This process will update the East Boston Master Plan, published in the year 2000, and will produce recommendations for updating Article 53, East Boston zoning article, which was last updated 27 years ago. This memorandum requests authorization to petition the Zoning Commission to adopt a text and map amendment to Article 27T, East Boston Interim Planning Overlay District. Article 53 is unable to adequately service development pressure the neighborhood currently faces. While the neighborhood participates in this long-range planning initiative, the BPDA recommends establishing an interim planning overlay district, or IPOD, to address this pressure. The adoption of an interim planning overlay district will help ensure additional review of effectively all proposed development while the neighborhood is engaged in the planning initiative. The IPOD will require the following projects to obtain an IPOD permit and thus be subjected to community review through the Zoning Board of Appeals. That includes any project that would erect 1,000 square feet of gross square footage, any project that enlarges or extends an existing building by 1,000 square feet, or any proposal to make an exterior alteration to the height of the building or as it meets the street wall. The IPOD would cover the entire neighborhood with the exception of Suffolk Downs, which is engaged in a PDA master plan process, and Massport property, which is exempt from zoning regulation. The IPOD does not replace existing underlying zoning, and it is intended that the IPOD would be retired at the conclusion of the planning process to be superseded by recommendations to update Article 53. The IPOD was presented at several public forums and has been received positively by the community. On July 16th and again on September 20th, Councilor Lydia Edwards and Councilor Michelle Wu hosted public hearings. The events were attended by more than 250 community members who were given the opportunity to give feedback via public testimony. On September 25th, the BPDA hosted a public meeting to formally launch Plan East Boston and describe the role of planning at large as well as the function of the iPod specifically. The community process confirmed the need to provide greater predictability in the built environment and was supportive of both the effort to address the neighborhood zoning via community-driven planning process and intermediary regulation. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 11, request authorization to enter into a contract with Hub Parking Technology, Inc. for the furnishing and installing of a parking access and revenue control system at parking lots located at 269 Commercial Street and Fulton and Cross Streets in the approximate amount of $98,488. Devin.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, members of the board, I'm back to ask for your approval for the BRA component of the Parking Revenue Access Revenue Control System. The staff have performed a single audit, or single procurement rather, for both the 3 EDIC parking lots and the 2 BRA parking facilities. All the details of the procurement are the same for both organizations, and the same as the presentation I gave earlier. And we intend to enter into a contract with a single vendor for both organizations. The difference in the contract's amounts between the EDIC and the BRA are determined based on the size and the access differences between the lots. So I'm asking for your approval to enter into a contract with Hub Parking Technology USA for the removal and installation of parking systems at BRA-owned parking lots in the amount of $98,488. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order? Second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Devin. Item number 12.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman,
Let me
board
read
members.
this. Let me read it
Sorry.
first, Bob. I know, Devin got you all nervous, I know.
New guys, you gotta watch them.
Item number 12, request authorization to amend the ground lease agreements with the MGH Institute of Health Professionals, Inc., Massachusetts General Physicians Organization, Inc., and General Hospital Corporation for buildings 36, 62, 75, 114, 149, and 199 located at the Charlestown Navy Yard. Bob.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, Secretary Polhumus. Stand before you to request authorization to amend 6 ground leases with Partners Healthcare and the Charlestown Navy Yard. Probably the best way to explain this is between the 2 entities under the BPDA, we have approximately 150 different leases, of which 30 have CPI adjustments. They are annual calculations that have to be done to change the rent. Other long-term agreements have other rent changes built into the leases, and some of the shorter terms would have those as well. But the idea is to become and to get ourselves in a more standardized position. There have been a number of authors that have put these leases together throughout the years. So a number of the older ones are very, very different. To enhance our process and save time and energy, the idea is to at least start with partners and to amend these 6 leases so the CPI adjustments are now coterminous, which means we'll do them the same time every year for as long as the leases are out there. The other big thing that we're asking for here is to define the CPI index that we're going to use for the change in the rent adjustment. So those always haven't been clear as well either. So over the next, year or 2, we hope to bring the other remaining leases to the board for the same kind of adjustments and ease of use or those kinds of things. So that's pretty much what we're doing.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
Bob. Are there any questions from the board?
Makes sense.
Hearing none, a motion's in order?
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thanks, Bob. Item number 13, request authorization to extend the tentative designation of P-3 Partners LLC as the redeveloper of a portion of parcel P-3 and a portion of parcel P3H in the Campus High School urban renewal area. Dana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Secretary Polhemus. Before you this afternoon to request an extension to the tentative designation of P3 partners relative to parcel P3 and the proposed Tremont Crossing project which you see before you. I wanted to take a few minutes this afternoon to elaborate a little bit about the purpose of this particular extension and to speak also about areas of progress that the development team has made specific to the issue of the site plan. This, as you can see, and project is one of significant magnitude, and it is a parcel for which there is going to need to be a significant amount of, I'll use the term, site preparation work. The team has proposed, I'm going to move to one particular slide that's going to be illustrative of this. The team is proposing to make two major changes, I'll say, that will impact the site and have bearing on the way in which its proposed buildings will move forward. The gray shaded areas are the actual buildings themselves. This, just by way of orientation, is Tremont Street. This street is to be created as South Drive. And the area next to it, if I can work with the area next to it is the Madison Park School and John D. O'Brien School. One of the significant changes which the development team is proposing is the relocation of the Stony Brook sewer line. The existing sewer line is on a paper street here, and in order to have a sewer line, Boston Water and Sewer Commission requires that there be appropriate access. And so the team is looking to relocate that sewer line, as indicated here, through the creation of a new street which will be called West Drive. Apparently we have technical difficulties. What I will say is that a significant piece of that work is the required approval of 100% construction and design drawings of that plan. The approximate cost of that relocation is $6 million, give or take. And what we, the BPDA senior staff, as well as our colleagues in the Department of Public Works and the Transportation Department have required, is that the development team secure the approval of those plans prior to moving forward with zoning commission approval, so that we can then have the parameters for the site itself. The approval from Water and Sewer Commission is imminent. I'll go back one slide to give you a couple of benchmarks. Water and sewer approval of those plans is imminent by this fall of 2018. In addition to that approval, the development team is seeking 25% design approval from the Public Improvements Commission for the various rights of way and public streets that will be created. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, this project is next to the Madison Park School, and a portion of the project will utilize some of the road and access ways that are owned by BPS. There is a required memorandum of understanding and operation that will be entered into by BPS with the development team that is imminent as well. And there is also an agreement by the development team to work with the Parks Department to take into consideration and assist with various improvements to the parks in the surrounding area. So those 4 items have imminent approval and will set the stage for the secured site plan that enables us to go forward with zoning. Hence the request for this extension. I'll stop my remarks there, and I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Are there any questions from the board?
Dana, are you expecting these benchmarks to be achieved in the next month?
That is the hope.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you,
very
Dana.
much.
Item number 14. Request authorization to amend the ground lease with CVPA Chain Forge LLC, tenant and redeveloper of Building 105, also known as the Chain Forge Building, located on a portion of parcel NY-1 in the historic monument area in the Charlestown Navy Yard within the Charlestown Urban Renewal Area, and to allow the additional time to close on the construction financing and to obtain building permits and approvals. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In December of 2017, BPDA and CVPA Chainforge LLC, or the developer, executed a ground lease for the development of the Chainforge building in the Charlestown Navy Yard into a 230-room hotel. Under the terms and conditions of the lease, the developer would be in default of the lease in the event that they did not obtain building permits and secure financing by June 30th of 2018. At the June 2018 board meeting, the board authorized an extension of time to complete financing and obtain building permits to October 31st, 2018. Since the June board meeting, the extensive and massive chain forging equipment has been auctioned off and has been removed. The developer is finalizing construction documents for BPDA review prior to submitting to ISD for building permits. And they are close to finalizing an agreement with an equity partner to secure conventional construction financing. We're requesting a further amendment to the ground lease to allow the developer to finalize financing and obtain building permits to January 31st of 2019, which will also allow the developer, BPDA, and the City of Boston to finalize negotiations pertaining to the pilot agreement for the project.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Item number 15, request authorization to terminate the affordable housing agreement in connections with 135 Athens Street and to execute an affordable housing contribution settlement agreement and to take all related actions. Tim.
Thank you. This is about 135 Athens Street in South Boston. This is a property that was supposed to provide 2 income-restricted condominium units. The developer did, however, violate the affordable housing agreement and actually sold the units on the open market. As a result, in following up with the developer, we have agreed on a settlement in which they would pay $600,000 for the 2 units. They were originally approved in 2014, which is under the 2007 policy. If they had originally done a contribution, they would have owed us about $425,000. So this is there is a penalty part of this payment. So thank you for your consideration on this matter.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Are there any questions from the board?
I have a question. Tim, are you at liberty to tell what developer that was?
I'm sorry, could you please
Are
repeat
you
that?
at liberty to say what developer that was?
I don't have the developer name. Let's see here. It was Black Flat LLC.
Flat?
Black Flat, but it's Leah Popolarski.
Any further questions from the board?
Does that developer have other business pending with the BPDA?
They do not at this time. So this is something we can accomplish today. Yes.
Should there be any penalty around future, limiting their future ability to bring something to the BPDA?
I think we would have to take this situation in consideration for future projects, yes.
Well, in hindsight, it actually was better off that they did violate it. We got more money, right? You said it was worth about $400,000 back then. We got
$425,000 is what we would have gotten under our formula.
Yep.
Even if they were to buy out today.
Right.
But because we're applying the 2015 policy instead of the 2007 policy, we're getting that bump up to $600,000.
Do we know if or what is our process internally to kind of ensure that we are monitoring this and to make sure that there aren't additional ones out there, or how we can detect these instances?
So there has not been some processes in the distant past for these. These are new processes that we're installing, and this is one reason why we found this project. We have identified this in a few other projects that we are following up on, some of which are now in marketing, so we're moving forward on those. And we're installing new processes to catch them as, make sure that as they pull their permit, that they're making sure they're going to the marketing. That for one thing you may see in board memos recently, instead of just saying they need to have a marketing plan in order to market the units, we're now requiring that they have the draft plan to marketing at the time of the building permit. So that's something that's part of one of the changes we've done recently to try to improve the system.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes
Thank
have
you.
it. Thank you, Tim. Item number 16.
That's good.
Request authorization to issue a certificate of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of a mixed-use building consisting of 35 residential units, including 6 IDP units, and 2,533 square feet of restaurant space and bicycle storage located at 400 Dorchester Street, to take recommended approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. John.
Thank you, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Madam Secretary. This mixed-use development at South Boston's Andrew Square is, the project is also located in the planned South Boston Dorchester Avenue study area. The proponents, 390 Dorchester Street LLC, they're also known as Cedarwood Development, filed their Article 80 application on August the 21st. The comment period concluded on September 24th. This proposal was well received by the community. The big thing with the Andrew Square community is that they really like that this project's commercial component will bring a new restaurant to the neighborhood. And they really love the level of detail in this design that was proposed. The project also has the support of the Andrew Square Civic Association. The proponent has also committed a total of $35,000 towards a transportation action plan for the planned South Boston Dorchester study area. At this time, I would like to introduce George Moranti from the development team to further the presentation. George?
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you, John. George Moranci, I'm the project attorney. Actually, I think we'll go straight to the project architect, Shane Losey. I think John has summarized the project well. If there are any questions, I'm available.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name's Shane Losey with Chu & Company Architects, members of the board. Hello. So the project is, as John said, for 35 units, mixed use. The existing site is an underutilized with a clicker. Thank you.
That's what it is.
Go ahead. You all set with that? Yeah, sorry. It's in the Dorchester Avenue study area with the density bonus of a 60-foot height building and FAR of 6. So we're trying to, our building is a 6-story building that basically takes up the whole site. Our project is on the top of this slide, the red box. It's an underutilized site in Andrew Square. Andrew Station is the white building on the bottom. It's basically right across the street on the square. The existing site is a empty parking lot and a 1-story convenience store, which you can see, it's at the top of the site. The parking lot is the piece right in the middle of the square. It's, we also are incorporating a 4-story multifamily. I think it's a 3-unit building on this page on the top of the site that goes up Dorchester Street. Also on the site, the triangle piece to the right has been approved for a 6-story building as well. It's another project our office is doing. This is our site plan. The white building is the proposed. There's a 4-story building to the right of ours, and then 2-story townhouses to the top of ours, which run up Dorchester Street. So Dorchester Street is the top street, Preble Street is the street below us, and then Andrew Square is to the left. The train station in this diagram is top left of this slide. And again, here's some pictures of how the site is today. So you see the parking lot right in the front, and then the 1-story convenience store behind. And then these are kind of views going up all the streets around Andrew Square. So up Dorchester Ave to the south, back towards Dorchester, we have like a 3.5-story urban fabric of buildings, similar on Boston Street, same thing. As we go back down Dorchester Ave to the north, which is back towards the city, we have a lot of redevelopment going on there where it's a much taller scale. And then Preble Street has been developed over the past few years, so we have a 4-story building on the Preble Street side of us right next to it. The project itself, the developers wanted something more traditional, so as you come into the square, it really stands out. So we proposed a building of brick, cast stone, and then all the cornice elements and the detail elements are GFRC, so that we can get kind of custom pieces to go on this and just make it more of a much more traditional look in the square than some of the more modern buildings that are going up. The context behind, or some of the inspiration behind this came from an original building that was on the site in the early half of last century. So our first 2 floors kind of mimic the forms of that building. And then we used some of similar buildings around the city, like Ferdinand Building, there's a building in Fields Corner, building on Broadway where we have these angle buildings. That's kind of what we're using as a precedent, as a inspiration for this. And any questions?
Well, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
Yeah, so since this does sit within the planned South Boston study area, can you expand a little bit on how this particular project aligns with that planning study and kind of helps to achieve some of the goals outlined within the study?
I'll take it. Certainly, George Moranci again. In this plan area, this is an area where preference is for ground floor commercial or retail, which this building is proposed to have a ground floor restaurant. So it's fulfilling the plan. It's also fulfilling a vision and a hope that the neighborhood has had for increasing ground level amenity space in Andrews Square that would serve the local community. Shane mentioned the project on the other triangular, the Andrew Auto Glass site, which was approved by this board several weeks ago, also done by Opportune Company Architects, different clients of mine. Andrews Square also exacted the same promise from that developer to have a ground floor restaurant to activate the streetscape and to give people in this neighborhood who don't have a lot in terms of family restaurant in the area, something that obviously West Broadway and East Broadway both have. So that is also a fulfillment of the plan objectives to have ground floor commercial to activate the street here. In terms of the other aspects of the project, it is, as Shane said, it's a density bonus height area of 60 feet. This is a 60-foot tall building. And the building essentially doesn't have setbacks. It's 0 setbacks under the plan, under the initiative. But more important, this is this is a very prominent site at the confluence of both Preble Street and Dorchester Street. It's appropriate to build it out, strongly to the edge of the sidewalk, which this building does. It reestablishes a presence in the square from a building that had existed there many, many decades ago that Shane also mentioned. This is a rental building, and there are no parking spaces. Again, the site, much like the Andrews Square Auto Glass site, is not well suited to having curb cuts and traffic's entering from the building site onto either Dorchester Avenue or Preble or vice versa. It's directly across the street from Andrews Square, so it's also facilitating the concept of transit-oriented development. Couldn't be a better illustration of that than a site that's literally across from Andrews Square.
Okay, if there's no further questions, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And I'm going to recuse myself from this vote. The ayes have it, though. Congratulations.
That's good there. Thank you, Still. Thank you, Shane. Yes, yeah.
Item number 17, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of 16 condominium units, including 2 IDP units with 16 parking spaces and bicycle storage located at 425 Border Street, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. John.
Thank you, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. This residential development is on the edge of East Boston's Eagle Hill neighborhood. It's just a few blocks from Central Square. The proponent, PhD Homes LLC, filed its Article 80 application on August 9th, and the comment period concluded on September 10th. The community's response to this proposal is that they like the idea of the change of use from an auto body service station to housing. The proposed project is also supported by the Eagle Hill Civic Association. The proponent is making contributions of $10,000 to both the East Boston Social Centers as well as the city's funds for parks that'll benefit the East Boston Greenway. At this time, I would like to introduce Richard Lins from the development team, who will further the presentation. Richard?
Thank you, John. Excuse me. Thank you, John. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden. For the record, I'm Richard Lins, 245 Sumner Street, East Boston, on behalf of the petitioner. With me is Scott Trenier with Chu Architects. We'll make a brief presentation on the building programming. Just before I bring up Scott, let me just run through quickly for the board's understanding a little bit about context for this neighborhood. As John indicated, this is on the edge of the Eagle Hill neighborhood, very close to the Chelsea border, and it's an existing auto repair facility. Throughout the community process, we did hear from abutters and neighbors how a lot of these auto repair facilities in residential neighborhoods have become less and less desirable. And this, I'm sure as this board is familiar, this particular corridor in East Boston has been transitioning more towards a residential use, and a lot of these industrial uses are being eliminated with redevelopment. So just looking around, a view looking down Border Street here, left side is the Shore Plaza housing congregate housing complex, as well as some other multifamily housing in the area. So one of the things that we looked at was to take into consideration some of the housing that's already existing in the area, as well as some of the housing that has been proposed. And again, just a couple of different views of the existing site and the existing auto facility. At this time, I'd ask Scott to come up and just walk through the program of the building, and I'll be available for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Scott Trenier from Martha Chu's office. As far as the building goes, we have a lower level parking. We have 16 parking spaces. We have a larger lobby to, hopefully instill some use of other transportation uses such as Uber, etc. Going the wrong way, excuse me. We have two street facades on this building, corner lot. Here we have the view on Falcon Street. Using three primary materials, we're using a terraclad rain screen system on the lower level in conjunction with a red brick and a fiber cement panel on the upper level, trying to stay with a contemporary look with the neighborhood, with the adjacent buildings that seem to reflect the same type of style. It's just the rear elevation, right elevation. This is the Border Street elevation, as you can see. We have the main entry at the corner of Border and Falcon, and try to make the focus on the intersection of the building. Any questions?
Are there any questions? That's my job. I'll ask those questions.
Sorry, excuse me.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions from the board?
I have one question. Can you just expand a little bit on any kind of community engagement or outreach that was done in relation to this project?
Sure, I can address that. As with most of the projects that are occurring in East Boston, there's sort of a two-tier process. So within Article 80 is actually three levels. One is the community engagement with the civic organization, and that would be the Eagle Hill Civic Association. We did have an opportunity to make this presentation 3 times to that group. We did take into consideration some of the comments that they had made and made some adjustments, and for ultimately receiving the vote and support of that group. The second level is the Office of Neighborhood Services engagement through the community process. We held an abutters meeting where direct abutters were present and raised some issues and concerns relative to the proposal. We felt that we've addressed those items. And the last would be the Article 80 process and the community meeting that was undertaken in connection with Article 80.
Okay, if there's no further questions and a motion's in order.
So moved. Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And one, I'm going to recuse myself from this one also. Item number 18. Request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of 18 condominium units, including 2 IDP units and 1 commercial unit, with 8 parking spaces and bicycle storage located at 277 Border Street, to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This proposal is very similar to the previous one. It's a mixed-use development, also in East Boston's Eagle Hill neighborhood, just 1 block from Central Square. The proponent is MG2 Group LLC. They filed their Article 80 application on August 28th, and the comment period concluded on September 28th. The community's response to this proposal, very similar to the other one, is they like the change of use on the program site, the project site, I mean, and it being, the site's a very blighted area. This proposed project also received the support of the Eagle Hill Civic Association. This proponent, is, like the previous project, is also making a contribution of $10,000 to the East Boston Social Centers, as well as to the City's Fund for Parks designated towards the East Boston Greenway. At this time, I would like to introduce Richard Lins again to continue the presentation. Richard?
Thank you, John. Again, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden, Richard Lins on behalf of MG2 Group. With me is Sharon Gentis. She is with Joy Street Design, who's the architect for this project. As with the last proposal, this is also located on Border Street in an industrial corridor. The proposal, quite similar, would eliminate the industrial use located in a multifamily residential neighborhood. This is surrounded by other commercial uses, but again, an emerging neighborhood that's changing with a lot of proposed mixed use and additional residential development. It's located, as John indicated, less than 1 block away from Central Square, so there are a number of amenities available to this location, and as well as close to public transportation that's located on Meridian Street. The existing site, as you can see here, is a 1-story commercial auto repair with an adjacent parking lot located immediately next to it. This would be demolished in place of the proposed multifamily mixed-use project. Just by way of context, a 66-unit project was approved probably 3 lots over from this maybe last year, and I believe is being proposed for construction in the coming spring. So again, just to lend to that consideration about the changing nature of this particular neighborhood away from industrial, closer to residential. Just a couple of different views of the existing conditions. And at this time, I'll ask Sharon to walk through the program of the building.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Sharon Gentis of Joy Street Design. So as Richard said, this is on the edge of the Central Square Business District, and so one of the things that was important was, even though we have parking, to push it towards the back of the site and to bring a small retail space and a lobby to the front. So you'll see where the green and the gray are, those are at the back of the site, that's the parking, and then we have a small retail, which is the yellow, and then the blue, which is the residential lobby. So that it brings activity to this street. The building is 5 stories. As Richard said, there are other precedents for that in the area, but you can see when it compares to the buildings up on Meridian Street that because of the slope of the hill, it's not towering over its neighbors despite being taller. Here's a rendering of what's proposed. The neighborhood was in support of a modern approach. We're looking at doing different types of panels to break the facade up since it is a double lot. And so we're using Nichiha panels and other fiber cement products to give it a little bit of interest, and brick at the base, as well as some plantings. I believe that's it.
That conclude the presentation?
That concludes the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
I'm glad you're including retail. What kind of retail do you picture going there?
So the size of the retail probably wouldn't be larger scale for restaurant use. Probably something, maybe professional offices or small-scale retail that complements what's in the square presently.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Number 19. Request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of 40 income-restricted residential units, including 9 home ownership units and 31 residential rental units, with 30 on-site parking spaces and bicycle storage located at 872 Morton Street, and to take all related actions. Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. The proposed project includes 40 units of mixed-use income housing consisting of 9 income-restricted home ownership units, 31 income-restricted rental units with off-street parking for 30 vehicles. The unit mix includes 14 one-bedrooms, 22 two-bedrooms, and 4 three-bedrooms. As you can see, the project site is located across the street from Economy Plumbing. Forest Hills is this way, and Dorchester and Galvin Boulevard is that way. Staff is requesting to issue a certification of approval in compliance with Article 80E, Small Project Review of the zoning code. The project's architect, Artan Sudoku, will give a brief overview, and the development team is here to answer any questions for the board members.
Thank you, Lance.
Yep.
All right. Which one is which?
The red is the...
All right. Thank you, everybody. So like Lance said, this our site is on the Morton Street. It's at the intersection of Morton Street and the MBTA Fairmount line. We're facing Morton Street on the south. We have the MBTA line on the west. We have small scale commercial on the east and residential neighborhood on the north. Business. This would be the view from the neighborhood. Basically, everything is covered from vegetation. This is our site plan. So north is this way. This is Morton Street. This is our access to the site, and this is both our vehicular access as well as the pedestrian access. On the north, there's a proposed new amenity for the neighborhood garden. Our building is developed according to the site, very linear. We have let me go to the floor plans. We don't have floor plan. So we have a parking podium underneath the building, just 1 story, which is double loaded. We access it here, and it's double loaded on both sides. And we have 4 stories of wood frame residential on top. We are facing Morton Street, approximately with this view. We've picked masonry and to interface with the street according to several existing buildings on Morton Street. We've gotten some input from BPDA staff and D&D design team about materials and look of the building. This would be the north, the south view, basically the Morton Street elevation. And these are another couple of views of the building, same viewpoint. The site is very sloped, so it's high at Morton Street and at the rear at Hopkins Street on the side of the neighborhood, and it's depressed at the middle. We're using the slope of it to access the parking on the underground. So like I said, basically we're interfacing with Morton Street with masonry, some metal panels, and with fiber cement elements on the neighborhood side, which is in line with what happens in that side of the neighborhood. Another elevation on the MBTA tracks side, so it's basically the same language reflecting the residential character of the building. This would be a partial view of what the neighbors would see through the garden. Like I said, everything is going to be enveloped in vegetation, so very little pieces of the buildings would be visible. We are putting a small community area on this side to interface with the garden. So that's basically the building.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
I have a question. Can you go over the details of the kind of affordable housing and income restricted units, the makeup of that, and then kind of how we're able to have such a wide range of you know, 30% to like 100% of AMI. I'm just trying to get a sense of how we were able to kind of piece that together and have this lower, how we're able to offer the just more detail on the affordability components and.
Sure. Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Lisa Alberghini, President of the Planning Office for Urban Affairs. We are the co-developer of the site with Donald Alexis is here from the Caribbean Integration Community Development, and we're co-developers. It's a great question, and it is a challenge to try to provide a lot of affordability. We're actually doing it here in 2 tenures. So of the 40 units, there will be 31 affordable rental units, and those will be affordable to households making from 30% area median income to 100% area median income. That will be financed with a variety of funding sources that enable us to make these affordable to that band of households. It will include low-income housing tax credits, IDP money, CPA funds, and other city and state subsidies. So that's one piece of it. Then the other piece is that we will have 9 home ownership units. Those units will be affordable to households earning from 80% to 100% of the area median income. It's a little bit higher. Folks who are more wanting to enter the home ownership market. And for that, it's interesting, there has not been financing specifically for home ownership units for quite a while, but we're able to work with the city, who's very committed to get community preservation funds and some other funding to try to get that home ownership tranche in there. I will say that the neighbors, we've worked closely with the neighborhood. It was initially an all rental development with not this broad income mix. And they really said they wanted something different, and they wanted home ownership. They challenged us, and we ended up really with a much better development because of that. So, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions?
I have a question. How are you going to be publicizing this, the great mix of incomes that you're able to do and the affordability that you're able to offer? Are you going to be doing any publicity around your building and what you're doing?
Sure, the question was, Donald, how we're going to be, are we going to be advertising or gaining any publicity around the great mix of affordability? And I would say,
yeah, and the city's support for
sure,
it and
sure. I mean, I think there are a couple of things. We obviously will be letting residents of the neighborhood and the community know of the diverse, sort of the economic diversity of this development and the rental and home ownership opportunities. Well, the city has played a huge role. It's city property. The city has stepped up and has really committed, tremendous resources for this. So that will be definitely part of the story that we will be getting out. I would say that Donald is on the Haitian media regularly. I don't know, Donald, if you want to comment on some of those radio and TV spots, but we would be doing it through that as well.
And just to take one step back, again, my name is Donald Alexis. I'm the president of the Caribbean Integration Community Development. Just to take one step back, throughout the whole process, we devoted so much time to tell the community about the good that development gonna do in Mattapan. So the community constantly come out supporting the project along the way, and this process will continue along the way on bringing people out and tell people. Also, I see my job as two-front. Yes, we're looking for the subsidies, but also have people know about the subsidies. One is time that we need them to advocate, at the state level to the Mattapan delegation, that they can support those policies to produce more type of development like Martin Village.
excellent. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions and a motion's in order.
Are you going to make a comment, Tim?
Yeah, I was just to make sure it was very clear. This is a project that's on D&D parcel. It used to be the Mattapan Police Station that was torn down, and it will be D&D funded, and the affordability will be monitored by D&D.
Excellent.
Okay, there's no further questions and a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you,
Thank you, Mr.
congratulations. Item number 20, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of 39 residential units, including 5 IDP units, a ground floor artist work area with 20 parking spaces, and 48 on-site bicycle storage spaces located at 111 Terrace Street, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. Raul.
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. The item before you this afternoon is the proposed 111 Terrace Street project in Mission Hill. The project site consists of approximately 11,900 square feet of land and is currently occupied by a 3-story structure and a parking and tow lot area. The proposal itself includes the construction of a 5-story residential building with 39 rental units, 22 off-street parking spaces, and a shared artist work area on the ground floor level of the building. Of the 39 residential units, 5 will be designated as IDP units, with 2 of those units being designated as IDP artist live work units. With respect to the Article 80 process, the proponent submitted a small project review application on June 8, 2018, which triggered a public comment period which concluded on August 31st, 2018. A BPDA-sponsored public meeting was subsequently held on July 19th at the Tobin Community Center. In addition to the BPDA public review process, a proponent also conducted additional community outreach with immediate abutters, local elected officials, and neighborhood organizations, including the Mission Hill Neighborhood Housing Services and the Community Alliance of Mission Hill, to solicit input on the proposed project and address any concerns. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Mike Ross, counsel for the development team, to further the presentation.
Thank you, Raul. Good afternoon, members of the board, Mr. Chair, Mr. Director, Madam Secretary. My name is Mike Ross. I'm an attorney at Prince-Low Bell representing the team. The principal of the team, Mark Cabral, is here, as well as the architect for the team, Ed Roach. The architect sent around some samples. Early in his career, he became very inspired with certain brick that he used at the Fenway Studios, and he's carried that into a number of his projects, among them this one. We're pleased to be before you today. So the project's at 111 Terrace Street. Terrace Street is in an industrial section of Mission Hill, but has recently, over the last 5 to even 10 years, become a popular place for housing now. A lot of housing projects have entered onto the street, and we're now one of them, hopefully. The site is 0.3 miles away from the orange line from Roxbury Crossing. It's very well suited in terms of transit. This is just a kind of orienting picture for you of Terrace Street. You can see it's got this industrial feel. This building right here is actually on our development site lot. It's a 3-story existing building, and we like it, and others in the community liked it. And so what we're going to do, it is deteriorating, but we are going to rebuild it in place. And that became the inspiration for the rest of the development, which you'll see in a second. Again, this is the development site. It's about a 12,000 square foot parcel that's set right into the hill itself of Mission Hill. It steps up significantly as you go backwards. So we're putting it right into the space there that's being created. Yeah, there's another shot. This is the survey of the property. And this right here is probably a good orienting shot for you. This is where the 22 parking spaces will be. It's a 39-unit building. There is a 333 square foot artist workspace right here, which achieves a couple things. One, it allows us to provide a shared workspace for 2 of the artist live work units that are in the building. It also creates a little space between the entry of the cars to the pedestrian entry of the main entrance of the building. And in doing that, it just creates a little bit of a safety there, a little bit of a space. Our bicycle entry is right through over on this side. So there's different porous access points to the building there. This is an elevation. Again, this is the kind of where this is the driveway I was just pointing out. There's that the workspace there, the main entrance, the entry to the bike room, which you can see as you walk by, and then these kind of undulating streetscape here where you have that existing building I pointed out to you there, and then 3 buildings that follow in that type of pattern. This is a shot of how it looks really nestled there into the hill. And as I mentioned, the hill comes up from behind, and it kind of it situates itself right in there. And this is a elevation drawing of the site. And our team is here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board?
I have a question about the artist's workspace. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on kind of how you came to that decision and any kind of collaboration that you did to identify artist's workspace as opposed to any other use for that?
Yeah, there's actually a glass blowing studio to the left of this building. It's actually going to be redeveloped, unfortunately, I think. I'm not sure how long it is for this world, but there have been artists in this Mission Hill neighborhood and on this street. And in fact, this building right here is, or was, I think, an artist live work space. So we wanted to preserve the artist live work space, and we actually initially just had one space so that we didn't lose one. And when we met with the cultural arts affairs people here in the building, they said it's better when you have at least 2. So they recommended a second artist live workspace and this kind of creative shared space down here, so that it's actually separate. Sometimes you have artists live work as one unit. This is artists live as 2 units, and then a third just artist work unit, which they have in other parts of the city. So it allowed us to have, and we moved it around in the building. Their units 15 and 25 studios. The live space is 555 square feet, but then you have another 333 with the work.
Okay, there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Beautiful building. Beautiful building.
Oh, do you want to get the bricks?
Thank you.
Want those 2, buddy? You can take them.
It's cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 21, request authorization to issue a scoping determination waiving the requirement of further review pursuant to Article 80, large project review for the construction of a 230-room hotel with ground floor commercial space located at 150 Nealon Street, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. Michael Sinatra, BPDA Project Manager. The project before you is 150 Nealon Street in the Leather District. It is a large project consisting of 96,500 square feet. The proposal is for a 230-key hotel with retail lounge space on the ground floor. The height will be 21 stories at 218 feet. There will be no parking associated with this project. Due to its close proximity to South Station, the anticipation is that most of the guests will either walk from South Station or take a car service or taxi. You're probably familiar with the current site. It's the old Splash nightclub, and it has gone into disrepair and become an eyesore. The Leather District neighborhood has overwhelmingly supported this proposal and is excited to see this blighted site be redeveloped. The expanded project notification form was filed on June 25th, and the comment period closed on August 15th. Public meeting was held on July 11th, as well as 2 IAG meetings on July 17th and August 6th. All were well attended, and most of the feedback was highly supportive of the project. I also just submitted this morning a support letter from City Councilor Ed Flynn. The proponent also did extensive community outreach, not only in the Leather District, but also in Chinatown. And the project received its BCDC approval on October 2nd. As a result of the robust community and IAG process, an agreement was reached that produced an excellent mitigation package, which will be highlighted in the presentation at the end. Finally, this project will achieve LEED Silver status, and the construction cost will be approximately $50 million and will produce 150 construction jobs and 40-plus retail and hotel jobs once the hotel is open. I'll now turn it over to the development team for further questions, to go further through the presentation in more detail and be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Noam Ron with Hudson Group. Just a quick introduction. My dad, Ori Ron, is here on behalf of Hudson Group as well. Kevin Diebler from Rohde Architects as well. I just wanted to thank Mike Sinatra, the BPDA staff, obviously the board here. Thank you for having us. And this project really has become the result of a lot of engagement, obviously from the city staff, mayor's office, Councilor Flynn's office, the Leather District, Chinatown community. So some of those folks are here today. I just wanted to thank everyone. Mike sort of covered everything, so I'm going to try to go quickly through this. The community piece of this was where this project started. So I talked about the Leather District. Mike mentioned the engagement there. We really started this as a partnership with the Leather District. We attended 3 meetings and had conversations even before purchasing the site at the beginning of the year. So it's kind of a robust process. We were pretty proud of the support, and I think I was actually surprised to see the level of engagement. Usually you don't see people coming out for support, but these are really well-attended meetings. I happen to live in the neighborhood as well. A little bit about Hudson, without getting too far into it. We're long-term developers, and we've been active in the neighborhood, in the Leather District specifically, for close to 25 years. So I think a lot of the support comes from us being sort of a known entity, what I like to think as a socially responsible developer. And this is sort of our first hotel project, but we've done housing, close to 300 units in the neighborhood, including an affordable housing project with the CEDC of Chinatown, just a few blocks away from the site. So I think that's part of the reason we saw the level of support that we did. I'll take us through the Live, Work, Connect slide. I had a hard time capping this because I think we're pretty proud of the mitigation package that we put forward, and I think the benefits that this project is yielding. So I'll touch on a few here. Most of this is really a result of our community engagement process and sort of reflects the voice of the community that we heard throughout the process. The one that's pretty innovative, the 300 free hotel nights per year, is a program we're working on with the Office of Housing Stability. This really was my dad's idea, and sort of a thought where we heard a lot about jobs and about housing. Right, this is not a housing project, and we're under 100,000 feet. We wanted to think of a way to give back to the community, to sort of do what's right, and ultimately provide short-term sort of transitionally, not housing, but just help for people who need it. So whether it's from eviction or fire, flood, or displacement from immigration, that we were seeing all too much in the headlines today, that benefit was something we're pretty proud of, and it was sort of a reaction to that. Mike touched on the jobs. Obviously, hotels are a big job creator. We are talking about sort of a limited service hotel with small rooms. So even in that scale, I think 40 plus jobs is pretty beneficial to the neighborhood. And most of the benefits that I'll take you through are touched on here, but they're focused on the public realm and where the community sort of starts interacting with this building. The neighborhood, I think most people are familiar with the site. I don't know if they're familiar with the Splash nightclub, but you may or may not be, and that's okay. But we're directly across from Reggie Wong Park, the MassDOT sites that are known as Southgate, a block from South Station. So this is almost as transit-oriented, I think, as you can get. And interestingly, we're also thinking a lot about Nealon Street, how that ultimately connects through Chinatown, the Theater District, and into the Back Bay. So that's sort of the context we're working through. We touched on the community process pretty heavily. I do have a copy of the letter here that we received from the Leather District Neighborhood Association. They voted overwhelmingly in support of the project. In case anybody wants a copy of that, it's here. The existing conditions, again, I think are part of the reason we saw the support that we did. To call this a nuisance, I think, is an understatement. This place is pretty much a disaster. We bought it in February, made some small temporary improvements to this, but unfortunately over the years, this has been vacant since 2014. It's become just a pocket of negative activity. So not only I think is the new project providing positive activity, it's making this go away, which people are pretty excited to see in the neighborhood. Won't have too much time to touch on the design here, but just a quick slide around the inspiration. The top piece here, how sort of Kevin and his team are thinking about the context in the Leather District, a traditional kind of brick and beam environment. It often gets compared to sort of the Soho, I think on a mini version. So you'll see it in the design, we're carrying a lot of these cast iron elements, really sort of bold ground floors, ornamentation at the top. We're not sort of trying to mimic a historic building, but understanding that concept. And then down here, some ideas of sort of shared streets, and I'll talk a little bit about some improvements to Utica Street, thinking really how we can upgrade the public realm in and around the site. We touched on kind of the high-level project statistics. This is a view from Lincoln Street at Neeland, and then the opposite view. This is pretty prominent from 93 and sort of a couple of exits off of Route 90 as well. 230 rooms. It is just under 100,000 square feet, 21 stories. And important to note that we're on a very, very small footprint. It's 4,800 square feet is the whole site. So it yields a pretty inefficient floor plate, which is a challenging site, but I think the size of it also means that at this level, at this scale, the impacts to the neighborhood at this edge location are fairly minimal, environmentally and otherwise. Again, a couple more points on the design specifically as an immediate kind of response to the community process. So we were asked, to create a place that's publicly accessible, that has food and beverage. Kevin and his team really sort of are accenting the first 2 and 3 levels of this. The Leather District feels like a great place to walk, but a lot of places are sort of hard to get to. This is going to be one of the few places where the ground plane really starts interacting, people can interact with it. And a lot of improvements of this edge on Utica Street, a lot of new lighting, just a sense of security I don't have existing conditions of that, but it's a place that's been sort of abused as an alley, and we want to sort of put it back on the map and at least, make some upgrades so it looks like a proper street, a proper front door for us, but also just a safer place to be. A couple points on the public realm. It's a little hard to see, but we talked about the lighting along Utica Street for added security. We're using Utica as our drop-off area for taxis, Ubers, Lyfts, etc. Raising a bike lane here on Neeland Street, and that's going to run all the way from South Street to Lincoln Street, so really beyond our site. We're thinking about ways of honoring the cast iron elements that you saw before, both at the front door and along the facade of the building. And adding greenery and sort of plantings on every edge where we can. A little hard to see on elevations. I think just one interesting thing to point in elevation here is this is like a very literal interpretation of sort of hotel rooms. Because of the small size of our hotels, the grid that Kevin and his team sort of put together, each one of these is literally a room. You don't often see that architecturally. I'm not an architect, but it's just an interesting point here. And the west and east elevations also help you understand how slender and small proportion that this building is. It really is kind of a needle. A lot of text on this slide and a lot of sort of the mitigation pieces to go through, so I'll try to touch on them quickly, but it is pretty robust. The Leather District does fund, and they sort of pass the hat around, for lack of a better term, to fund a neighborhood cleanup project. So we committed to helping that long-term with a $10,000 commitment for 10 years. What we heard a lot about, and as recently as last week, I think Councillor Flynn and the mayor's office did a walkthrough of the neighborhood and highlighted some very, unfortunately, sort of hotspot areas in the community. And one of the ideas that came out through the public process was to add security cameras that would both be accessible to the police department, but also just to discourage some of the negative activity that we're seeing around the neighborhood. We're taking it upon ourselves to repair sidewalks, make them safe. It's a little bit embarrassing today to sort of have to walk either myself as a resident or sort of investors when we have in town, or at some point hotel guests. So it's a complaint that often comes up at neighborhood meetings, and we're looking beyond our site to improve sidewalks along the district. I touched on the improvements to Utica Street. What's in here is an additional $25,000 that we're willing to put in, but this doesn't include everything that our project already is sort of taking on Utica Street. And a couple of important contributions to two parks. So Leather District Park, most people don't know it's called this. It's basically the edge of one financial. It's a hardscape area there with a planter. We're hoping that the Greenway eventually sort of takes that over as a steward of it. And this hopefully sort of unlocks some of that value. And then directly across from our site is Reggie Wong Park, a park that's pretty heavily used by the community recreationally, but could use some help as well. So we're looking at some temporary gestures we can do there. And I already touched on the hotel accommodation, but that is a sort of a 10-year commitment for 300 free nights per year that would be managed by a Chinatown-based nonprofit in collaboration with the Office of Housing Stability. Again, not enough time to get into all the points of our lead targets, but we're looking at, we're targeting silver. I think we can get to gold, but we put silver up here sort of under-promising and hopefully over-delivering. And an idea that came up through our conversations with the city, we already have these partnerships with the community and hopefully with a nonprofit in Chinatown. I actually didn't realize until recently that LEED also accounts for sort of social equity credits. It's something that we've done in other projects without LEED points, something we've been talking about before sort of knowing about this as an option. But we're going to be looking into that as well. It's not sort of your typical sustainability conversation, but more kind of the social responsibility angle here. That's mostly it. I'm happy to obviously answer questions. And again, thank you all for hearing us today.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board?
No, I just want to comment that the 300 free nights, that's the first time I've ever seen anything like that. I think in my, what do we have, 3-year tenure on the board. So I just want to say that I think your commitment to social responsibility is very commendable.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, if there's no further questions on the motions in order,
So moved. Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 22, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the Zoning Code for the construction of 22 condominium units, including 3 IDP units, with bicycle storage located at 610 Rutherford Ave, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. Michael.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. Project before you is 610 Rutherford Avenue in Charlestown. It's a small project consisting of 23,890 square feet at the very edge of Sullivan Square across from the Schrafts building. The proposal is for 22 condo units, including 3 IDP units with 19 parking spaces. It will be 5 stories at 57 feet in height. The 5th level will have individual balconies with a 700 square foot common roof deck and a 565 square foot common area with a kitchenette. The site is currently a 2-story building with 4 residential units. The developer is also committed to $20,000 to Boston Transportation Department for the Rutherford Avenue redesign project. Total development cost will be approximately $5.5 million, and it is anticipated that the project will produce 120 construction jobs. Small project review application was filed on August 10th. 2 public meetings were held on August 23rd and September 18th, both lightly attended. There was not much community opposition. At this time, I will turn it over to Gray McCletchy, owner and developer of the project, and we'll be happy to take any questions you may have afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael, and I want to thank the board for hearing my request today. My architect, Mike McKay, usually does these things, so I'm going to try and muddle through this. Bear with me. I think Mike covered most everything here. This is right in Sullivan Square, busy Sullivan Square, on the corner of Cambridge Street and Rutherford Ave. The existing site has 2 buildings on it that are attached. And the concept here was to keep the existing building, which was built in the 1890s, the B.F. Tweed School, intact. It's a commercial building. It's got a very prominent spot right on Sullivan Square, and it's an attractive building. And so the concept was to subdivide the property, rip down the small little, if I can get the, not sure how to do the little, anyway, on the left-hand side, there's a small little 2-story building that's already been designated by the Landmarks Commission to be able to be ripped down. To rip that down and create the new 22-unit building. Whoops, sorry. Right here, as you can see. So The building on the right with the green space, that's the old BF Tweed School. That's a 3-story commercial building that's going to remain there. And the new building is to the left. As Mike said, roughly 23,000 square feet of residential. There's no commercial, there's parking on the first level for 19 spaces. In the front of the building, right off Rutherford Ave, is a loading zone that's designed to make sure cars can get off a busy street, deliveries, truck deliveries, Ubers, whatever. And then there's 19 parking spaces. There's 4 residential floors above. Floors 2, 3, and 4 have 6 units, and the top floor has 4 units. And as Mike said, there's balconies on the top floor. There's 3 affordable IDP units, one of which is a 3-bedroom, so families will be able to reside here. And basically the design of the building was meant to sort of echo sort of the industrial past with the big windows, lots of glazing, but also have new modern touches with some gray brick columns, metal cladding up on the top, fiber panels, and black windows. And I think that basically sums it up.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved. Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Congratulations, thank you. Item number 23. Request authorization to execute an amendment to the land disposition agreement with South Station Phase 1 owner LLC, to execute an amendment to the development agreement with South Station Phase 1 owner LLC and the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, and to take all related actions. Tim.
Good evening, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. The South Station Air Rights Project is a phased project over South Station containing a maximum of 2,725,000 square feet. The project has been reviewed under the large project review procedures of Article 80B. The BRA, by a vote taken on June 6, 2006, voted to authorize the director to issue an adequacy determination approving the final project impact report. The adequacy determination was issued by the director on July 19, 2006. A notice of project change was submitted to the BRA on July 29, 2016, and approved by the BRA on December 15, 2016. The proposed project has been reviewed under the Plan Development Area procedures of Article 80C. On June 6, 2006, the authority held a public hearing at which it approved a development plan for the Plan Development Area for the proposed project. On June 28, 2006, the Boston Zoning Commission approved the PDA for the proposed project and accompanying map amendment. An amended and restated development plan for Plan Development Area number 68, South Station Air Rights Project, was approved by the board on December 15, 2016, and by the Boston Zoning Commission on March 8, 2017. The land disposition agreement currently contemplates that the conveyance and delivery of possession of the project site would occur on or before October 31st, 2018, and that the adverse conditions period as defined in the LDA would expire on October 31st, 2018. To facilitate the development of the project and the public benefits to be obtained in connection therewith, the proponent has requested that the LDA be amended to extend each of the outside conveyance date and the end of the adverse conditions period to April 30th, 2019. Pursuant to the development agreement, the outside closing date, on or before which the closing under the development agreement will occur, is October 31st, 2018. To facilitate the development of the project and the public benefits to be obtained in connection therewith, the proponent has requested that the development agreement be amended to extend the outside closing date also to April 30th, 2019. David Perry from Hines, the project developer, is available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Are there any questions from the board?
I don't have any questions per se on this, but can we just get a general update on how the project itself is going?
Sure. Good evening, David Perry with Hines. So when we were last before you in the springtime, we had significant approvals that we were seeking from the MBTA and Amtrak and the Federal Railroad Administration, and we're very pleased to report that we've made tremendous progress, particularly with the MBTA, on getting all the agreements and approvals. As I think you all know, there's very significant public transportation infrastructure improvements that are to be built by us as part of this project that require very elaborate plans and getting those all approved by the MBTA, and then to a lesser extent by Amtrak and the Federal Railroad Administration is a tall order, but we still have some work to do with Amtrak and the FRA, but we're in a good place, and we hope very much that this is the last time we need to seek an extension from the BPDA board. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved. Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's do item number, we'll get one done before we go to the break. Item number 28. Hold on, let me just check. Yeah, item number 28. Dana, you all right if we do this? Okay. Request authorization to submit an application for the Economic Development Agency grant through the United States Department of Commerce in support of 12 Channel Street Mass Robotics Project, and to enter into all necessary documents associated with the grant submission. Dana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, and Secretary Polhemus. We, the BPDA, have had the very good fortune of working with our sister agencies, the Office of Economic Development, particularly in the support of bringing new and exciting companies to the Boston area, one of which is Flextronics, which we've brought to you before, and now before you is Mass Robotics. In addition to that success, we've also worked with the Commonwealth's Office of Economic Development to secure grant funding in the form of MassWorks to support not only infrastructure, but also build-out, which is one of the functions which the MassWorks fund supports. Mass Robotics is a recipient of a MassWorks grant, and having started in 2015, has expanded from the 5th floor of 12 Channel Street to now the 2nd floor, looking at the use of approximately 25,000 square feet, as indicated in the photo which you see. Their proposed expansion will require approximately, and I'll just flip through these photos just to show, this is now where they will expand to. Requires build-out. And Mass Robotics, I'll say a little word about what it does. They focus on artificial intelligence and robotics. And this company, along with Flextronics and our bringing them to this location, fits in with the mayor's vision of making this part of the city a hub of technology and creating an ecosystem. So we're really fortunate that they've chosen to expand with us. By using this space to expand, they can also help bring other companies and other schools, including the Boston Public Schools, to witness and learn about this new form of technology. This expansion is going to cost approximately $5.2 million. They have secured, again, the MassWorks grant. In our conversations with our regional director from the Economic Development Administration, this particular funding source through EDA became known to us, and it is free money, which we can facilitate the administration of, that can be used to support Mass Robotics in its attempt to expand. And once the build-out is complete, the new version of the space will look like this, and will include conference space, classroom space, shared co-working space, and the ability to host a series of events that include international companies, local companies, and most importantly, as far as a public benefit, event space which can be used by the community, and also hosting public schools, high schools, et cetera, that can, again, learn about this great technology that is in store. I will stop my remarks there, and I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Tom Ryden, who is the CEO of Mass Robotics, and we can both answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Are there any questions from the board?
Dan, did you just say the build-out is going to be $500 million?
I'm sorry, 5.2 million.
5.2 million.
Correct.
Does it include that little robot there? Is that a real thing, or is it just for fun?
No, I think that's just for fun. No, it's actually a good question that you ask. Both MassWorks and the EDA are very clear in the type of the ways in which funds are used, and for build-out, it is about design and construction. So, as cute as he is, no.
I know. I was like,
Okay, if there's no further questions, the motion's in order? Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed,
Thank you
ayes
very
have
much.
it. So, Dana, do you want to do item number 29?
Is that one number 9? I don't believe that.
Oh, I thought you had the last two, so.
No, I didn't. Thank you for
Okay,
asking,
so
but no.
Item 28 passed, and we have like a couple of minutes before we take the break.
Okay.
You want to do item
I'll
number
let Tim do it.
It's a very, it's, you know what it is?
Step up, Tim.
It's very, I know that, it's very simple. It requests authorization to co-sign a letter with the Commissioner of Boston Transportation Department and the Director of the Department of Neighborhood Development to the Zoning Board of Appeals outlining a 2-year compact living policy and to amend the inclusionary development policy to allow rental and sales price policies for compact units. Tim.
Good evening, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. The Compact Living Policy pilot under consideration tonight has been a collaborative effort between the BPDA, the City of Boston's Housing Innovation Lab, the Department of Neighborhood Development, the Boston Transportation Department, the Inspectional Services Department, and others. It is the product of a 2-year exploration by the Housing Innovation Lab that included resident outreach across the city, testing via a housing innovation competition and RFP, and input from the development and design communities. I'd like to introduce Marcy Osberg, the director of the Housing Innovation Lab, to present the details of the policy pilot, and will be available afterward to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for having me. So what is compact living? Compact living is efficiently designed small units that have shared common areas with easy access to places residents frequent, like job centers, groceries, parks, etc. We are interested in having this new pilot program because currently there exists a metro unit policy which governs our minimum square footages in new development. And we'd like to have this pilot policy that allows for square footages below that. First, we wanted to find out if residents are even interested in this kind of housing. It's happening all over the world and the country, but is it wanted here in Boston? So we had a small unit. We brought around the city. We went to 6 different neighborhoods and talked to over 2,000 residents and heard overwhelmingly that yes, they are interested in smaller units if it's well designed, has shared spaces they need, and has good access to transportation to get them where they need to go. We also heard that this is a great option for different types of people. It's great for existing residents who want to stay in their neighborhoods. It's great for retirees and empty nesters, for people with disabilities who benefit from increased affordability and proximity to services they need, young growing families seeking more affordable 2- and 3-bedroom units, and young professionals and graduate students. We also know that there's demand for this kind of unit. We expect many of them to be studios and 1-bedrooms. And in Boston currently, our population is 37% single-person households, 32% 2-person households, and yet we have only 7% studios and 26% 1-bedrooms. BPDA and Department of Neighborhood Development have been seeing proposals with these smaller units coming to them. So we're seeing a demand for this kind of housing. So what is this policy? The policy is only for new construction of 10 or more units with any units less than the square footage below. So less than 450 for a studio, 1-bedroom at 625, 2-bedroom less than 850, and 3-bedroom less than 950. I want to reiterate this is new construction only, 10 or more units, and with any of these kinds of compact units. So even a mixed building with some standard units and some compact units would have to apply by these guidelines. Developers who elect to build these smaller units would comply by the guidelines that I'll explain in a minute. They would follow our usual regulatory review processes. In fact, smaller sized developments such as 10, 11, 12, 14 unit buildings would have to opt into the Article 80 process. So that would include community process and urban design review. They also would have to follow the inclusionary development policy. And we've worked hard to think about how to do that in a fair way. So for income restricted units, the rents would be at 90% of the standard rate. The amenity package would be calculated at a discount, and the unit dispersion would be the same as usual across the building. The guidelines have 3 components. There's unit interior guidelines ensuring that a minimized personal space does not reduce livability. Shared spaces are required in the buildings that foster resident community And then finally, transportation to reduce impacts on community and costs for residents. A couple details on each of these. Unit interior, the guidelines require that all functions of living are met within the unit. There's adequate storage and daylight. We have designs that encourage a variety of solutions to meet these, and they have a range of dimensions. We also have shared space guidelines. There's an equation to determine how much square space is required in the development. So for example, a 43-unit building would be required to have 440 square feet of shared amenity spaces. And those spaces must have good function and have universal design principles so that everyone can use them. They must be on a good location so they have access to natural light and they're exciting to use, and good management so that people continue to use those spaces. And finally, for transportation, we are encouraging reduced parking ratios, having a parking maximum that's based on walking distance from transit. So a building that's between 0.25 and 0.5 miles from transit would have a parking ratio of 0.5. For these buildings, in order to minimize the impact on on-street parking, there will be no resident permit stickers provided. And we also have transportation demand management measures. These will help meet our Go Boston 2030 goals. They're based on the number of parking spaces in the development. So for example, if you have 16 parking spaces, you'll be required to get 13 points. You could meet that in a number of ways, but one possible way would be an on-site childcare, 100% subsidized bike share, delivery amenities on-site, and 1 month subsidized transit. So that's a summary of the policy that we've put together.
That's great. Very nice. Are there any questions from the board?
Quick question. I think it's great also. A question on the parking. So the building's built, the people on that street decide that they get enough signatures, they want resident parking. I live in that building. I can't get a resident sticker?
That's correct.
Yeah, I think it's great, incredibly innovative, and very detailed and well thought out. What is your, what's the indication on kind of, this is the policy, you know, are there developers out there that, you know, we think are really going to act on this, or just trying to get a sense of?
Yeah. I think you'll probably be seeing developments like this coming to the board fairly soon. We've had a lot of interest in this already, and we've had to tell them, wait, the policy is not complete yet. So there is interest from developers already to do this.
Interesting.
Okay, if there's no further questions, and a motion's in order?
So moved. Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Congratulations. We're going to take a brief 5-minute recess before we start the public hearing, so just sit tight. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held as required by the guidelines of the Housing Creation Regulations, to consider the housing creation proposal as submitted by the East Boston Community Development Corporation, Inc., and Affirmative Investments, Inc., for 41 North Margin Street in the North End. This hearing was duly advertised on September 27, 2018 in the Boston Herald. In a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed for a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. John Campbell, project manager for the project review, will now proceed with the presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. This mixed-use development is located in Boston's North End. The project site is the longtime home of the Knights of Columbus Hall. The proponents, East Boston Community Development Corporation and Affirmative Investments Incorporated, filed their Article 80 application on August 29th. The comment period concluded on September 28th. The proposal was well received by the community. The community really likes that the project site will be used for affordable senior housing. They also like that this is not going to be a market rate project. That would mean that there would have been significantly more density to the neighborhood. The proposed project is supported by the North End Waterfront Neighborhood Council, the North End Waterfront Health Center, St. Mark's Society of Boston's North End, and a few other civic groups within the North End. At this time, I would like to introduce Jeffrey Drago from the development team. Would like to further the presentation. Jeff?
Thanks. Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, and Secretary Palimas. Jeff Drago with Drago and Toscano are the attorneys for the developer, the East Boston CDC, and the project that you see before you at 41 North Margin Street. As was mentioned, we're proposing a project that will create 23 affordable senior rental units in the North End and 1,515 square feet of meeting hall space for the Knights of Columbus that do own the building now, and 13 parking spaces. This project, the building's been sitting for a while, most of it idle. This is going to be a complete renovation of the building and will also keep the building intact. We are proposing an addition to the side of the building along with squaring off the top floor, which we were required to raise the height of the building slightly from 53 to 57 feet. But by doing that, we were able to retain the building, which is important to both the community and the city. The particular area is a multifamily residential zone. The lot size slightly under 15,000 square feet. The proposed square footage of the project, 24,257 square feet. Just a couple of points, obviously creating 23 housing units, senior housing, affordable units, 50 construction jobs, and some community benefits, a community room that will be utilized for the community and designated for them, as well as also keeping the Knights of Columbus housed in the property at the same time. Just a couple of aerial view picture. Just some shots as you view down North Margin Street for surrounding properties, and then just the project site at different angles. As we mentioned, the gate, where that gate stands now, that'll still retain the entranceway for the 13 parking spaces as well. And this is our proposed site plan, so as you can see, some green space around the perimeter and also having the parking in the rear. And these are just some of our elevations, so as you can see, existing, going to propose, so retaining that building but adding the addition as well. Just to give you a unit breakdown, so out of the 23 total units, 12 studios ranging in size from 439 square feet to 575 square feet and 11 one-bedroom units from 575 to 625. Just on the community process, we did have an extensive community process. We had an abutters meeting back in April that was well received by the community, and as was mentioned, we got the support of the North End Waterfront Neighborhood Council as well as our elected officials, and we had a very positive Article 80 meeting as well. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Tim Davis to talk a little bit about affordability. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the reason for this public hearing is not for the Article 80 approval of this small project, but actually for the housing creation linkage portion of this project. It's a public hearing that's required when, instead of a developer providing all their funds in annual payments to the Neighborhood Housing Trust, that payments are net present valued into a batch and then contributed to a nearby specific project. It's a two-step process that requires a vote of the Neighborhood Housing Trust and then by this board. The Neighborhood Housing Trust voted to support this project on September 27th and then paving the way for us to look at it. It'll be, it'll be 23 senior affordable units. It's the first fully affordable project in the North End since 2001, which was the Michelangelo School, also by East Boston CDC. There will be up to $6 million in linkage funding from the Boston Properties Hub on Causeway, not Hub on Cause project, and could start construction early 2019. Well, to notice in the picture, you see the back of the Knights of Columbus Hall here, and the building going up in the back is actually the Hub on Causeway. That's the hotel portion of the project. And they're about to start construction on the office tower portion of the project as well. So your vote will make it possible for this project to be almost entirely funded by linkage funds, plus a small $1.5 million grant that they're applying for from either CPA or IDP funds at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. That concludes your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so we'll go into the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Please step right up, state your name. Anyone that would like to speak in favor?
Members of the board, Director Golden, Chairman, Secretary, Patrick Lyons on behalf of State Representative Aaron Mikowitz. We'd like to go on record in support.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Is there anyone that wants to speak in opposition? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, hearing none, are there any questions from the board?
Tim, there's no secret, I like height and buildings, and you touched on it, but this project would not have been possible without the linkage money and the change that the mayor made with the affordable housing piece that we did I think it was last year, correct, where the developers can buy out.
No, actually, this is part of the housing creation has been part of linkage since its initiation in the 1980s. It's just that we don't use this tool very often. We had a children's hospital linkage, a housing creation deal with Parcel 20, I think it's Parcel 25 in Mission Hill that you approved earlier this year. But Mission Hill and NHS is very active in reaching out to the hospitals and making those arrangements. This is one of the first ones where basically our own staff here have really been the ones that have said, here's a project we want to do. Let's go find the developer that owes money to the fund and make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's great that they're in the same picture. It's just, I think it shows that development can be good and benefits of it sometimes is understated. You know?
I have to agree with you, Mike. I feel like these kinds of great stories don't get told very much, and the public are not really aware that they're happening. So I hope this particular project can get some attention and the story be told.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Okay, item number 25. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Article 80 of the Boston Zoning Code to consider the first amendment to the first amended and restated development plan for 319 A Street rear, within Planned Development Area Number 69, South Boston, the 100 acres. This hearing was duly advertised on September 27, 2018 in the Boston Herald. The proposed amendment seeks to permit office and retail use for approximately 1,000 square feet on the ground floor of an existing building at 319 A Street. In a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Ms. Kerr will now present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. On December 14th, 2010, the Boston Redevelopment Authority Board approved a planned development area development plan for the 319 A Street rear site. On November 17th, 2011, the BRA Board approved a first amended and restated development plan for 319 A Street, which superseded and replaced the original plan. The first amended and restated development plan authorized a project comprised of approximately 202 residential units, a lobby and building amenity spaces, and a 4-level parking garage with a total gross floor area of approximately 257,000 square feet. A certification of consistency and compliance was issued in April 2012, and the project was completed in 2013. On July 12, 2018, Equity Residential, the current owner of the 319 A Street building, filed the first amendment to the first amended and restated development plan to allow for a single change to the already completed project and permitting office and/or retail use for approximately 1,000 square feet of the building's ground floor. The BPDA sponsored a public meeting to discuss the First Amendment on August 28, 2018 on site at 319 A Street. The required 45-day public comment period in connection with the submission of the First Amendment was scheduled to conclude on August 27, 2018 and was later extended to September 10, 2018. BPDA staff is pleased to recommend approval of the First Amendment to the board this evening. Johanna Schneider, legal counsel for the proponent, will now take you through a brief presentation, and both Johanna and I will be happy to answer any questions the board may have after that.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aisling. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. As Aisling said, my name is Johanna Schneider. I'm an attorney for Equity Residential, who is the owner of the property at 315 on A. We are here tonight seeking a very minor amendment to the development plan for what was formerly known as 319 A Street rear, more commonly known today as 315 on A. As Aisling said, the project is an approximately 200-unit apartment building with a lobby and building amenity spaces and an accessory parking garage. It is within the South Boston 100 acres master plan area. Do we have the PowerPoint loaded on here? Do I have that? There we go. This is the area where the project is located. The outline of it is shown in yellow, and this is the exterior of the building, which was completed in 2013 and has been occupied since then. My client, Equity Residential, purchased it in 2015 from the original developer. We're here tonight to seek the change in use of approximately 1,000 square feet, 960 square feet to be exact, on the ground floor of the building. This is the space that they're here to talk about. For the last several years, this space has been leased to FPAC, the Fort Point Arts Community, and it was used by them primarily as office and storage space. When FPAC's lease was up earlier this year, they relocated to new permanent space at the Envoy on Sleeper Street. Equity attempted to find a retail tenant to fill this space, and we met with several retail brokers, but we were consistently told that because of the location of the space and the present lack of foot traffic on West Service Road, there's not currently any retail demand for this space. So you can see from here, this is the side of the building where this space is on. This is West Service Street, and this is the entrance to the space. The entrance to the apartments are on the other side of the building. While they were unable to find a retail tenant, what they were able to find was a local architecture firm with approximately 5 employees who's interested in having a small office in this space. Right now, office use is not allowed on this parcel under the site-specific PDA. But this is a parcel that was designated in the 100 acres master plan as a site where office would be permitted. So we're really just looking to add a use that was allowed by the master plan into the site-specific PDA. And so it's entirely consistent with the overall permitting scheme. We originally came in just seeking to do the amendment to add office because we did have this tenant lined up. But in our discussions with BPDA staff and the Fort Point Neighborhood Association, it became apparent to us that the city, the neighborhood, and equity would all like to one day be able to have retail in this space, to the extent that future development activates this side of the project and there is more foot traffic that would support a retail use. So we're now also asking that retail be added as a permitted use at this site. Once again, it's envisioned in the 100 acres master plan that retail would be used here, so the request is consistent with the master planning document. Just to show you, this is the proposed layout. There's no work that's being contemplated. We just have to move some outlets around, and this is what the use is. It's not expected to be a high impact use or anything like that. So with that, we're happy to take any questions the board may have.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to hold off till questions until after the public hearing part of it. So is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Please step right up. Anyone that would like to speak in favor?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden, Gary Walker, electrician, Local 103. I'd like to speak in strong support. Being the guy that moves the outlets around, I'm pretty excited about this job. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Minor Perez representing the Carpenters Union would like to go on record in support of this amendment.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this? Okay, hearing none, is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, are there any questions from the board? Pretty straightforward. There's no questions from the board. Then a motion is in order. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you
very
very much. Okay, item number 26. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Article 80 of the Boston Zoning Code, to consider the amendment to Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center's institutional master plan, and to consider the new inpatient building project as a development impact project. This hearing was duly advertised on September 26, 2018 in the Boston Herald. In a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed a brief period for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Tim.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. I'm filling in tonight for Caitlin Sullivan, who is out on maternity leave and is doing very well. I just spoke with her this afternoon. She did her usual great job managing this project. So if I've seen further, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. This proposed project is located in the Longwood Medical Area on a parcel bounded by Brookline Avenue, Francis Street, Pilgrim Road, and the existing Rosenberg building. The site currently includes the emergency department patient drop-off, ambulance entrance, main West Campus loading facility, and West Campus oxygen tanks. The emergency department ambulance entrance and main loading facility will be incorporated into the lower levels of the proposed project. Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center proposes a 10-story, approximately 178-foot tall, 325,000 square foot building, which will include 158 new single-bedded inpatient rooms, up to 128 medical surgical rooms, and 30 intensive care rooms. The existing helipad will be relocated from the adjacent Rosenberg building to the roof of the new inpatient building. The proponent filed an institutional master plan notification form and project notification form on January 11th, 2018. A BIDMC task force and LMA forum meeting was held on January 22nd, 2018, and a scoping session was held on January 23rd, 2018. A scoping determination was issued to BIDMC on February 22nd. On July 20th, BIDMC submitted a draft project impact report and institutional master plan amendment. BIDMC task force meetings were held on July 11th and September 6th, and an LMA forum meeting was held on July 23rd. The proposed project received approval from the Boston Civic Design Commission on October 28th, or on October 2nd, 2018. The proposed project provides a number of public benefits, including a $300,000 contribution toward pedestrian and bicycle improvements in the Longwood Medical Area, and a $40,000 contribution to the Fund for Parks for improvements to pathways on the Riverway. The project will make a number of public realm improvements, including enhanced landscaping at the gateway to the Emerald Necklace, ongoing maintenance of nearby Jocelyn Park, new bike racks and widened sidewalks, and enhanced landscaping on Brookline Avenue, Francis Street, and Pilgrim Road. Additional public benefits are outlined in your board memo. The proposed project is a development impact project with 325,000 square feet of DIP uses. The proposed project will provide an estimated $1,910,694 to the Neighborhood Housing Trust and an estimated $382,597 to the Neighborhood Jobs Trust. BPDA staff believes that this proposed project will be a positive addition to the Longwood Medical Area and is recommending approval of the proposed project. I'll now ask the BIDMC team to introduce themselves and present the project, and we'll all be very happy to answer your questions after the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, board members. My name is Peter Healy. I'm the president of Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. I'm very pleased to be here this evening to present our plan to construct this new inpatient building. This building, our first in more than 20 years, is needed to serve our most critically ill patients. As you know, BIDMC is a nonprofit academic medical center affiliated with Harvard Medical School. Our mission is to provide extraordinary care where the patient comes first, supported by world-class education and research. We work hard to achieve this through a strong and mutually respectful relationship with our city and our community. For more than 120 years, we have served Boston residents on our main campus, as well as through affiliated community health centers such as Dimmock, Bowdoin Street, and South Cove. We are very proud of our record of excellence in healthcare, as a large employer, and in community service. Before Walter Armstrong describes the site and the project's benefits, I would like to extend BIDMC's appreciation to all those in the community and City Hall who worked with us throughout this development review process for the project. We are grateful to Director Golden, our project manager, other BPDA staff, the Civic Design Commission, and to BTD, Boston Parks, and other city departments, and to our IMP task force members and multiple community members and groups for their comments and assistance. The final proposed project has benefited greatly from their input. I'll now introduce Walter Armstrong to describe the site.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Pete. Good evening, everyone. Tim described the site as bounded by Brookline Ave, Francis Street, Pilgrim Road, and also connects into our existing Rosenberg building, which borders Deaconess Road. The site is largely vacant, which helps us in terms of lowering capital costs because we do not have to do demolition, nor do we have to relocate extensive clinical services. Also, by connecting the new building into the existing building, we're able to utilize existing clinical support services like the pharmacy and the lab, once again lowering our capital costs and also making our operating efficiencies a little bit greater. The new building will serve our most critically ill patients. It will have new single-bedded, family-friendly rooms, new ICU rooms, and new operating rooms and procedural suites which can accommodate the latest technology for treatment. The building comprises 325,000 gross floor area square feet, and it's 10 stories high and now 178 feet high, a drop of 20 or so feet since we first submitted our plan. A number at 178 that gives us the operating efficiency we need and also mitigates the shadows on the Emerald Necklace. I should also say that the building involves no new parking to be constructed and also involves the relocation of the heliport from the existing Rosenberg building to the new building. There are a number of benefits for the project. Tim provided, I think, a lot of detail, and maybe I'll just go through at a pretty high level. The first and perhaps the most important is increased patient care for our most critically ill patients. Community health benefits, $21 million in state-generated community-based health initiatives that would be distributed to communities. Development impact payments, as you well know, housing and job linkage, workforce development, 80 to 100 new jobs in a training program that has been recognized for the city for being incredibly effective, so that when people come to BIDMC, they have the opportunity to grow both in wages and enroll in our institution. And it also involves 400 construction jobs, union construction jobs. Transportation system improvements, Tim mentioned the dollars, but there are improvements in the vicinity of Riverway and Brookline Avenue, which if you drive through the LMA, you know is much needed. Bike amenities have a considerable emphasis in this particular plan, and in general, we're trying to improve access and mobility in the LMA. Public realm improvements have been also a focus, improving the pedestrian experience along that part of Brookline, which is not very lively at the moment, and continue to provide maintenance, but also new landscaping for the pieces of property that pose the Francis Street gateway into the Emerald Necklace. The building has an environmentally sustainable design, certainly meeting the silver level that you require, and we are still hoping to get to a gold level. And the design, we believe, is architecturally distinguished. We had the benefit of working with David Carlson, Elizabeth Seifel, and the Boston Civic Design Commission. So I'm going to turn things over to Kevin Sullivan from Payette, who's our lead architect, and he'll take you very quickly through some of the design features. Thank you.
Thank you. First of which is the site plan. And the site is bordered by Brookline Avenue, Pilgrim Road, and Francis Street. And really the attempt on the site plan is really to embrace the whole block, not just the borders of this building. And you'll notice that the block is surrounded by a ribbon of green, and the base of the building actually we've thought about almost like a garden wall, and we'll get into that in a little bit more. The main patient entry to the new building is off of Pilgrim Road. It complements the existing patient entry to the Rosenberg building off of Deaconess Place. The ambulance entrance is going to be off of Pilgrim Road, and the Brookline Avenue is where our loading dock is. It's a 10-story building. As Walter mentioned, we're relocating the helipad from the roof of the Rosenberg building to our building. It's directly along the same flight path that the helicopters are presently taking, so it's a fairly easy maneuver in that regard. Some architectural features that you'll see on the exterior are this pedestrian connection that connects it to the far bridge, the sky lobby, and then a faceted skin of the building that is optimized to toward solar orientation and performance. Between the two buildings, the Rosenberg building and the new inpatient building, is a very wonderful patient and family garden that will be accessible from the pedestrian connector on level 3. And as you look at the building from the Riverway, this is the view, and I'm just going to remove the existing Palmer building so that you can see what's behind that. And what you'll see is the top floors. These are the faceted floors reflecting the dimension of each of the patient rooms that are tuned to the sun, the pedestrian connection, and then the main lobby at grade and the sky lobby that is where the elevator takes you to on all the upper floors. Looking a little more closely at the main lobby at the corner of Pilgrim Road and Francis Street, this is what it looks like. The main drop-off is this area, and you'll see the pedestrian connector. As you walk your way down Francis Street towards Brookline avenue. This is the main drop-off canopy. You get a sense of this animated streetscape, the garden wall that it's along the edge of the building with this very warm, lush materiality. As you are looking at the base of the building from Brookline Avenue, you get a sense of this enhanced landscape experience along the base of the building. The way the base works is like a garden wall, and even the loading dock door with this perforated metal skin is almost like a gate in a garden wall. At nighttime, we expect that to become really a remarkable feature along the urban streetscape. So with that, I think, Walter, you have a few closing remarks.
Well, I guess I'd like to add my thanks to Pete, both to all of you, to the Civic Design Commission, to the city staff, and the community groups that have been involved in this process. There's no doubt in my mind, and probably in a lot of people, that the project we're presenting tonight is better than what we started with, and is a real tribute to everyone's input. So we would be very glad to take your questions.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll get into the public part of this, and I'll ask if there's anyone that would like to speak in favor of this project. Please step right up, state your name. Anyone that would like to speak in favor?
I just wanted to call the board's attention to, we received a letter of support for this project from Councilor Josh Zakum. We got that today. It wasn't in your board packets, but you should have received it. We've also received support letters from the Fenway Civic Association and the Mission Hill Neighborhood Housing Services, who wanted to attend tonight, but unfortunately we're not able to make it. But those comment letters should be in your packets.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Director Golden, Madam Secretary Minor Perez, on behalf of hundreds of union carpenters that live and work throughout the city of Boston, I want to go on record support. For decades, our union carpenters have worked many times at the Israel facilities. Also, when there was a need for medical assistance, it's one of our hospitals of choice, and for that we consider Beth Israel a good friend, and for that we are here to support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Maureen Cuniff. I am a nurse at the Beth Israel Deaconess. I'm a resident of Jamaica Plain, 2 Driftwood Road, and I have been a resident of Jamaica Plain my whole life, not as long as the Beth Israel Deaconess, but close enough. I'm here to speak today in support of the BIDMC new inpatient building project and institutional master plan amendment. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Boston and have worked at the BIDMC since March of 2006. 8 of my 9 children use BIDMC for their primary care, as do their extended families. My family has been blessed with outstanding care at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. We have personally used the emergency room, obstetrics, neonatal ICU, medicine, neurosurge, cardiology departments, as well as cardiovascular ICU and our inpatient psych unit. One of my children is also currently a nurse at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. I've had 2 other children that have worked there in the past. I started there as a nursing supervisor, and I'm now the assistant director of nursing, and I'm responsible for staffing 2 buildings. Why not staff 3? That won't be a problem. While working at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, I was able to get my master's degree at the nursing cohort at Simmons College, and that was supported by the hospital. Over the years, I have worked with the BIDMC Gender Identity Task Force. All people need to be treated with the same respect and the support as they transition to the person that they see themselves as, and the BIDMC strives to make this possible. I support this project at BIDMC as it is needed to meet the needs of patients, which include many local Boston residents. This will be the first new building on BIDMC's campus in over 20 years, and is needed to meet the demand for single-bedded rooms. Currently, the BIDMC does not have enough single-bedded rooms. As evidenced by the 1 floor we've redone, it would be important to have more of those rooms. I urge you to vote to approve this project so that other Boston residents can benefit, as my family has, from all the excellent care at the BIDMC.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Good evening. My name is Manrika Lewis. I live in Hyde Park. I am the Director of Operations for the Pain Center at Beth Israel Deaconess, and I thank you for this opportunity. I'm here to ask for your approval for the new inpatient building project. I support this project because I know how important it is for BIDMC to build this new building so that we could have welcoming facilities that are needed to take care of our seriously ill patients. I also support the project because BIDMC is an excellent employer, and this building will expand job opportunities at BIDMC. and lived in the city of Boston for 31 years. I started working at BIDMC in 1992. I joke I started there when I was 3. So just make that math. But my family and my immediate family are also employed by BIDMC. You know, my mom used to say she'll pray that BIDMC continues so that way we can actually still have jobs. So it is an honor to be here, and I am asking for your vote to approve this new building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Eric Taberi. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of South Cove Community Health Center. South Cove Community Health Center services 33,000 patients overall, but 14,000 of them are in the Boston zip codes. And we send quite a few patients to Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, and we definitely see the need for single-bedded rooms. A lot of our patients, 92% of them don't speak English, so we have interpreters in the rooms when they're there. So having these single rooms would be a great advantage for our patients. We certainly see the need for ICUs. I've had dear friends go to BI and end up in the ICU, and they're always full, and there's definitely a need for more of those rooms. And certainly I've heard from our providers that we definitely need more procedure rooms. Trying to schedule procedures over there is getting scheduled out because of the lack of resources in all of Boston. And certainly to provide more is definitely increased access for our patients. So again, we serve the low-income Asian population in Chinatown. Strictly from Chinatown, we're sending 4,000 patients there, and Beth Israel never turns them away, and we're very happy to support this project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nelson Liu. I'm the board president for South Cove Community Health Center. On behalf of the board, we're here basically to offer our support for this project. Our executive director, Eugene Welch, has already submitted a letter for the record dated 9/18/18. I'd like to just read an excerpt from that letter, as the board has been briefed, and we offer our full support of his letter prior to its sending to you. South Cove Community Health Center is a community health center with locations in Chinatown, Quincy, and Malden. Our mission is to improve the health and well-being of all medically underserved Massachusetts, with a special focus on Asian Americans. This mission is accomplished by providing high-quality community-based health care and health promotion programs that are accessible and linguistically and culturally competent for these populations. We have worked successfully with BIDMC over many years on various initiatives, and we value BIDMC as an excellent community partner. We welcome the expanded and updated facilities that this project will provide that will enhance access to inpatient hospital care for our patients when they need high acuity services that will be provided in the new inpatient building. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Orelli. I'm Director of Planning at Children's Hospital Boston and a member of the BI Task Force, and the hospital overwhelmingly gives our endorsement to the BI project. We can clearly see how it will improve the LMA, and as a clinically affiliated institution in the LMA with aging facilities, we understand the need to really bring the facilities up to world-renowned care and be able to treat the patients accordingly. So Children's Hospital gives their full endorsement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jane Powers, and I am the Chief of Staff at Fenway Community Health Center in Boston. For those of you that don't know Fenway, we take care of about 30,000 patients, about half of whom identify as members of the LGBTQ community. So we are also a healthcare for all institution with a special mission to the LGBTQ community. We're excited about everything that has been presented tonight. We have a particular interest in excellent care, but I would like to speak to two things. One is, as a social worker, this building enables a ground-up development for integrated team care, and I think Beth Israel would benefit enormously from being able to do that. The other thing is that the single bed issue, everybody's going to talk about how wonderful that is, but for transgender patients, and we have 4,000 of them, single bedrooms in a large quantity are particularly important. Sometimes in residential facilities, a transgender person gets put in the one single room on a floor. That is stigmatizing. Having 128 single bedrooms enables transgender people to have the same access as everyone. So it both decreases stigma and increases access. We are excited about this project. We've been partners with BIDMC since 1974. This will be a next step in that partnership. We urge your vote for yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden, once again, Gary Walker, Electricians Local 103. I'd like to speak in strong support. I said it before many times. The institutions of this city, the building trades rely on them so much, and no more than Beth Israel. I don't think a day goes by that there's not 30, 40, up to 100 electricians and technicians working in that building. And we'd like to say thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of this new inpatient facility that is needed to care for seriously ill patients in the Boston area. My name is Andy Hernandez, and I'm a resident of Rosendale, and I'm also the Senior Director of Research Operations at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. The project will also enhance employment opportunities at Beth Israel Deaconess and allow more people to experience the career assistance and growth that I have enjoyed as a BIDMC employee. I've worked at BIDMC for 16 years in the Research and Academic Affairs Department, and I benefited from my own participation in BIDMC's Sloan Fellows Program for Leadership Development. And BIDMC has sponsored 2 of my staff members for participation in the Partnership Inc.'s Leadership Development Program for Multicultural Talent. In addition, I work every day with research administrators who began their employment in other roles at BIDMC and then were trained by BIDMC in the Research Administrator Pipeline Program to create a career ladder for them in a niche field of research grants administration. I think it is also important to note that as an academic medical center, some of the amazing research work that is done at BIDMC will be translated into care for patients at this new center. I hope that you will vote to approve this important BIDMC project.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Amber Brantley, and I am a resident of Brighton, Massachusetts. I'm here to express my support for BIDMC's proposed new inpatient building. I started working at Beth Israel 3.5 years ago at the information desk in the main lobbies. I have a second job as well as a unit coordinator, so I see patients at the front entrance when they first come in, as well as upstairs in the inpatient units. Shortly after I started, I heard about Beth Israel's Employee Career Initiative, where you can take free classes on site through Bunker Hill Community College and advance your career. I met with Babak Begral, the career counselor, a few times discussing fitting classes into my work and life schedule and my goals and how to realistically achieve those. I took a placement test and started taking classes through Beth Israel. I took 6 on-site courses, and then I had 5 courses that they offered tuition reimbursement for, so there were no out-of-cost expenses to me initially. All of this was with the goal of applying at Mass College of Pharmacy for the Doctor of Pharmacy program, and I'm happy to say that I was accepted, and I started this semester. As a patient and an employee at Beth Israel, I can definitely say that they encourage opportunity. They're equal opportunity caretakers as well as employers. And I want to express my support for Beth Israel's new inpatient building. It's the first new construction in 20 years, and it'll provide excellent care for seriously ill patients.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chair, Director Golden. My name is Tom Ward. I'm an executive board member of Local 7 of the Iron Workers and a resident of the city of Boston. I rise in favor of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Good evening, Director Golden, Executive Director Plemas, and members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Sarah Hamilton. I am a member of the task force and also represent Masco as a director butter to the West Campus. I'm also the VP for Area Planning and Development at Masco, which is a nonprofit working on behalf of all of the institutions in the Longwood area, where we provide development planning assistance, open space, transportation planning and operations, such as shuttle buses and many, many other services. On a very personal note, my family has also been patients at BID, and maybe 10 years ago when my sister was being treated, we would have absolutely loved to have had a single patient room for her to be treated and healed. So this is a really, really big step forward for the hospital. It's good for the city, it's good for the patients, and that's the most important thing, where many patients are coming from neighborhoods in Boston as well as the region at large. We, on the task force, had a well-attended and what I think is an inclusive process where people had the opportunity to raise many questions. And I personally think the BID has been extremely responsive through that process. And so therefore, we recommend approval and compliment everyone involved in this project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment. My name is Andre Jones with the Fenway Community Development Corporation. The Fenway CDC submitted a letter of strong support for this proposal. The Fenway CDC commends the way that Beth Israel Deaconess has gone through the Article 80 large project and institutional master plan review and consequently modified and improved the designs from its initial filing. Since the scoping session, the architectural design has been modified, resulting in improvements in appearance and efficiency and sustainability. Other people have commented on some of the benefits provided emanating from the project. So I'd like to say, though, that the new facility will help to meet the increasing acute and complex needs of the seriously ill patients referred to Beth Israel Deaconess from its network of community providers. In addition, it will also enhance BID's capacity to continue caring for local Boston residents, including patients from underserved neighborhoods. Fenway CDC urges the approval by the BPDA board of this proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lydia Emmons. I'm the Associate Director at Sociedad Latina in Mission Hill. We are Boston's oldest youth-serving Latino organization, and each year we work with over 5,000 youth and families to achieve economic stability, address health disparities, and provide college and career pathways. We've worked successfully with Beth Israel over the past 15 years on youth employment and workforce development initiatives, as well as providing community events such as our Latino Heritage Month celebration. We value Beth Israel as an excellent community partner, and we welcome the expanded and updated facilities that this project will provide. We are also extremely excited to see the number of workforce development opportunities and employment opportunities that it will afford the Mission Hill community. We have supported this project from the start and submitted a letter of our support, and we urge you to support this project as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, hearing none. Are there any questions from the board?
I have a comment and one question. Myself and my husband and our kids have all been patients, and really you saved my husband's life at one point, so thank you very much for the excellent care we've gotten at BIDMC. My one question is, I've driven many times to your emergency room, and there was a little parking lot there. I'm just curious how it's going to work for people who are driving to the ER now. Are they going to do that little patient visitor drop-off and then go park their car, or how is that going to work?
We are going to have valet service now on both sides of the building. There'll be a patient entrance on the Deaconess Road side, so patients will now, for emergency department, enter through the front door of the Rosenberg building, and there will be valet service 24/7.
I see.
And that notification actually will start right away, because one of our enabling moves is to reconfigure the emergency department entrance. So hopefully we'll get all of that sorted out very quickly, much in time for the new building.
Pilgrim Road 2 ways.
Yes, and we're turning Pilgrim Road into a two-way road,
Okay.
and that will help greatly in terms of access.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Are there any further questions from the board?
I have a question.
Oh, go right ahead.
You don't have to take the mic unless the chairman makes you. A 10-story building is typically not 178 feet tall. So where's that height being lost?
It's the floor-to-floor ceiling heights required for all the mechanical equipment, all the HVAC equipment.
Okay. It's,
In the medical building, that's why, I mean, our floor-to-floor ceiling heights are about 15 feet.
yeah. I mean, I personally wish it was 20 stories, but I was just curious. That's not a normal.
You have to fit all that conduit above the ceiling. Right.
Sure. And is it a structural job or concrete? Structural steel or?
Structural steel.
It is structural steel. And has a CM or a GC been selected?
CM, it's Turner.
Is who?
Turner.
Oh, good. Turner. And my comment is, two of the speakers spoke about it briefly, about institutions. And your institution puts your money where your mouth is. You hire contractors that provide health care to their workers, not just offer it. We know the difference between offering something and providing is much different. A lot of companies offer health care, but nobody can afford it that works for that company. But they say we offer health care to all our employees. Your contractors provide it to their workers, and you should be commended for it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, if there's no further questions and a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, this is item number 27. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Article 80 of the Boston Zoning Code regarding the 7th Amendment to the Master Plan for Planned Development Area Number 87 and the 2nd Amendment to the amended and restated development plan for the office building sports project at 40 Guest Street. Close that door. Within Planned Development Area Number 87, Boston Landing, Guest Street, Life Street, and Arthur Street in the Brighton area. The hearing was duly advertised on September 27, 2018 in the Boston Herald. In a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed for a period of 5 to 10 minutes for a brief rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Ashling will now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. Filling in for Casey Hines tonight, who, as I'm sure you all know, has lived and breathed this for a number of years now. As you know, the Boston Landing project was originally approved by this board in 2012 and is comprised of multiple exciting development projects along Guest Street in Brighton. Since its approval, the project has been back before this board multiple times to request minor amendments as buildings have evolved and commenced construction. Once again, we're before you this evening to discuss 2 minor amendments for your consideration. On July 27, 2018, Courtside Realty LLC submitted the 7th Amendment to the Master Plan and 2nd Amendment to the amended and restated development plan for the office buildings/sports project, specifically for the 40 Guest Street building, which now houses the new Celtics training and practice facility. The 7th and 2nd Amendments, respectively, request to add uses which were not previously included in the prior approvals, but now may be appropriate for the space. For example, the proponent has received interest in a cryogenics company, which would fall under fitness center and spa use. In addition to adding the fitness center and spa use, the proponent is requesting to add a variety of appropriate uses so that any available space can be occupied as soon as tenants are determined. The list of appropriate uses are outlined in your board memo. BPDA staff hosted an impact advisory group meeting and a public meeting to discuss the additional uses on August 29th, 2018, where the amendments received full support from the community. The comment period concluded on September 10th, 2018. Members of the development team are here should there be any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll proceed with the public hearing part of this before we have any questions. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Please step right up and speak in favor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden, once again, Gary Walker, Electricians Local 103, I'd like to speak in strong support. Once again, New Balance has been great. I don't know how many fellows we've had over there the last couple of years, but it's been great for our membership. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? So hearing none, are there any questions from the board?
One question, can we just get just a general update on kind of the whole entire facility? Like, is it going as planned? Are you feeling it? Like, kind of what's, really driving some of these changes of use?
That's a great question. I'm Jay Rourke, project manager with MB Development Group. Right now, we're actively leasing up our retail. That's one of the things that we're really focused on. The Celtics building at 40 Guest Street has about 9,000 square feet of retail that's unoccupied. We're aggressively trying to fill that space. One thing that we just completed was the expansion of NB Fitness Club, which is located, I think there's a laser on this thing, located right here. So originally the fitness club was located in this corner, and the old New Balance retail store was here. We've expanded the fitness club to occupy basically the entire western corner of the south parking garage, which really activates now that green space here on Life Street. All of the retail within 80 Guest Street is occupied with flatbread pizza that has 9 bowling lanes and great pizza and refreshments, except for a very small 1,200 square foot retail right on the corner. Originally that was expected to be the Bruins Pro Shop, but after we realized that they were sponsored by Adidas and, well, Reebok and then Adidas, we decided that was probably a bad idea to have that sign at our front door. And the Bruins agreed demand probably wasn't there at that time. So that is vacant right now. We just Cambridge Naturals, which is I wouldn't do them justice in describing this way, but it's a really nice new GNC with natural foods and stuff that they sell. And they're right about here. Rail Stop Restaurant is located right here. It's about 12,000 square feet of restaurant. Cohi Coffee just opened this store right here. It's about 1,200 square feet right on the bullnose, as we call it. And then the New Balance retail store is right here, the premium store. And the outlet store is over here on Market Street. Right about here is a very small, another 1,200 square foot retail space where we signed a lease with Mainly Burger. They're coming down from, they have a first brick and mortar store in Cambridge. This will be their first location in Boston, second location here in Massachusetts, and they have a place up in Maine, and they started their business with food trucks. Shooting for a restaurant here on the corner. Actively, we have a dance studio going right about here for adult kids dance. And this last one right here, 60 Guest Street, is a future project, unknown at this time who that tenant may be, but that will be a build-to-suit. And then obviously the big one, that's we are right now tracking to break ground on this just legacy project for the city and for Mr. and Mrs. Davis, the sports complex, which will have a 200-meter hydraulic track, the fastest in the world, and it will have a full soccer and lacrosse field, a magic carpet that comes out of the ground, and like an air hockey table will hover, float across the track. It's a hydraulic track, so it banks down and banks flat. And we're actually getting on a plane to go down to UNC to check out there's only one, there's 2 in the world. There's one down at the Naval Academy, but the cadets broke it, so it doesn't work anymore. And then this is the second one down at UNC Chapel Hill. They just built one, so we're going down to check it out. And the turf will basically roll from here all the way over, and you'll be able to have full soccer and lacrosse games and any kind of turf sport within the track and field facility. And then obviously there's approximately 26,000 square feet of retail that wraps the corner here and then wraps the corner here. And then we're looking to put a cultural use over there in the corner. So.
Good. All right, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
So now we'll go right into item number 30, request authorization to establishment of the Boston Redevelopment Authority's Capital Reserve Fund. Bob.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, Director Golden, Secretary Williams. This is identical to the same discussion we had the previous board meeting around the capital funding needs for the agency and the ability to set aside funds now as we plan to go forward with our capital projects. There's about $200 million of capital needs that the agency is looking at. So,
Okay, are there any questions from the board?
Bob, is this the same fund or are there two funds?
well, there
One
needs to be
fund?
one for each organization because we have two sets of books, one for EDIC and one for the BRA. So it's
Two.
just
Okay.
two.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Thank you,
Thank
Bob.
you.
Item number 31, personnel items. Heather?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We have a few items for your consideration on the BRA agenda. One appointment, Megan Richard, urban designer in the planning division. She'll start on November 5th. Two travel items for your consideration, John Dalzell and Chris Bush, both in the planning division. One status change, it's adjustment for Krista Zalatoris. And two departures with the details listed in your memos, Kathleen Joyce from the Office of General Counsel and Gary Webster from the Development Review Division.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Are there any questions from the board? Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it.
Thank you.
Item number 32, contractual, we need a motion to pay the bills.
I move we pay our bills.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. And item number 33, the director's update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier this evening, you met Devin Quirk in a formal BPDA sense. He's been here before, and he's certainly a well-known professional to us on the 9th floor. We've worked very closely with Devin over the years in his capacity as Chief Operating Officer at the Department of Neighborhood Development. So just a quick word of welcome. We're really pleased that he's here with us. He is, again, going to be serving as Director of Real Estate. He's hit the ground running. He's really very much a can-do kind of a person, so we look forward to Devin's service, and we're really happy that he's one of us now. The last week, we've had some really busy weeks with groundbreakings, but you get out in the neighborhoods, and we're seeing and experiencing some really interesting things. We talk so much and we experience so much of the downtown groundbreakings, which, you know, market rate, residential high rises. There's a lot going on in the neighborhoods that is geared to a different type of Bostonian, different socioeconomics involved. And last week I attended 2 Madison Park Development Corporation ribbon cuttings for projects in the city. We're very pleased to see these move forward. One of them is the DeWitt Center over in Madison Park Village, and the other is the Smith House. They're actually right across the street from each other. They're both developed by the Madison Park CDC. The DeWitt Center will transform Ruggles Street, as well as the lives of the people who benefit from the center's programs and services. It's a multi-service center. Over 15 partners are now running programs in the DeWitt Center, including out-of-school, after-school education programming, health and wellness activities, a public internet center, a teen center, recreational rooms, and significant attention to the arts. It's a beautiful facility. I was really happy to be able to spend some time there with Dana Whiteside, who does so much of his work here with the BPDA over in that neighborhood. But across the street from the DeWitt Center is the Smith House. That recently underwent a thorough renovation. It provides 132 one-bedroom units of affordable senior housing in a 12-story building constructed in the early 70s. This project was part of Madison Park Development Corporation's large master plan for modernizing Madison Park Village. Madison Park Village contains a total of 546 units. I want to say the nicest view maybe I've seen of the Boston skyline is from these senior housing units. So we're used to seeing these magnificent skyline views and a lot of the high-end market rate stuff downtown. It's wonderful to see that a lot of Bostonian seniors over in Roxbury are experiencing those same beautiful views, and I was up on the top floors to see them myself. So I thank Madison Park CDC on these terrific facilities and the wonderful accomplishments. Last week, together with Mayor Walsh and the Department of Neighborhood Development, we announced that all requests for proposals associated with public land disposition, that's BPDA, that's City of Boston, that's the other quasi-city agencies, but all RFPs for public land will include criteria to promote diversity and inclusion. We'll also ask developers to propose plans to prevent displacement when they come seeking to develop public land. The new policy will ask respondents for public land to include this diversity and inclusion plan that will establish an outreach program aimed at creating increased business opportunities for people of color, women, and for minority and women-owned enterprises. We'll be including this criteria in all RFPs on land, on public land, going forward. And really where it comes from is we've gone down this road in fits and starts. We've sort of been piloting, testing concepts. We did it with an MOA that really looked toward diversity and inclusion at the Winthrop Square development. Those goals were embodied in an MOA by the developer. We've been doing it in some RFPs associated with the Plan Dudley effort in Dudley Square in Roxbury. Those are RFPs being issued with regard to BPDA property as well as D&D property. And we also included language like this in our own disposition, which is still underway. We're still vetting the Parcel 12 proposal down on Tremont Street near the Tufts Garage and the Wang Center. So we've been testing this. We've been embedding this language in different RFPs. Now we've come to the conclusion that it belongs in all of them, and it will going forward. We think that's a really good thing to help us ensure that this incredibly strong business climate, this real estate development climate that is once again the biggest building boom in history, really permeates the city, that people throughout the city all along the socioeconomic and racial spectrum benefit from it. It's an important goal of Mayor Walsh. It's an important goal of ours. A few more words on housing. I want to talk to you about the mayor's updated housing plan. In 2014, in response to rapid population growth, Mayor Walsh set a goal of creating 53,000 new units of housing across the city and across all income levels by 2030. This past year, we analyzed new data, and today, with the help of the BPDA's research department, we estimate that the city's population will reach almost 760,000 people by the year 2030. We're going back toward a historic high. At the end of World War II, we were at 800,000. We appear to be heading in that direction once again. So to meet this population growth, Boston has now increased its overall housing goal to 69,000 new units of housing by 2030. So that's a 16,000 increase in the goal within the same time frame. Of the 69,000 new units, our goal is for 15,000 of those to be income restricted. And by 2030, our goal is to have citywide, again, today we have about 280,000 units of housing in the city, but by 2030, we would expect that if all of our goals are met, 70,000 of the units in the city will be deed restricted units regarding income. We're doing all we can to further these goals. Just tonight, you approved 193 residential units. But of those 193 units you approved tonight, 81% are affordable. 42% of them, that's 81, are income restricted. I'd like to highlight the two principal projects that we focused on with regard to affordability. 872 Morton is a 100% income restricted project in Mattapan. It will have 40 income restricted units. And 41 North Margin Street in the North End, which will have 23 affordable units. 41 North Margin is the recipient of the highest amount of housing linkage in the history of the linkage program. That's $6 million. And as you know, that linkage funding is generated by commercial projects, not residential commercial projects that this board approves. And those commercial projects are paying dividends in the creation of affordable housing, and it did it in a big way tonight with 42% of the units you approved tonight being deed restricted affordable. Also earlier tonight, you approved the compact living policy. It will increase housing options in response to the growing demand for housing in the city. This program will also promote sustainable development, encourage innovation, create innovative design solutions for living, and minimize potential traffic resulting from increased density. Finally, next week we'll be releasing our second annual Inclusionary Development Program report, which will cover all calendar year 2017 activities. I'd like to share a few highlights from the report with you. With respect to IDP units, 2,072 on-site and off-site units have been created by the IDP program since 2000. So that's just over 2,000 units since 2000. But 325 of these, 16% of the IDP total since the inception of the program, have been completed during 2017. So in 1 year, we had 17% of the units created out of the total. As of January 1st, 2018, 961 additional units are currently under construction. So with the completion of 96 units at the VIA, the project called the VIA, and the Benjamin and the South Boston waterfront, 17% of completed units, that's 17% of IDP units, are now in the new neighborhood of the Seaport. The South Boston waterfront has that many IDP units, more than any other neighborhood actually. The South End has 10%, the Fenway has 10%, South Boston has 9%. And with respect to the actual funding thrown off by the IDP program for developers in creating the units, they're providing us funding. With respect to IDP funds, developers have contributed $123 million in IDP funds through 2017. That doesn't include this year. 16 million of which was paid in 2017 alone. In addition, $22.4 million in new funds were committed to the IDP fund in connection with 2017 BPDA board-approved projects. So the real story here is so much of the benefits that have flowed from the IDP program are coming in more recent years. We're seeing, as a result again of this climate, this 5-year building, record building boom, it is bringing along with it significant new numbers of IDP units and significant IDP cash, both of which are so important in our effort to create affordable housing. So this report, the second update, which Tim Davis is spending a lot of time on, thank you, Tim, for your work. This report will be released next week. We look forward to sharing this with the public and to any, and we seek any feedback on how this important work can be done better. But again, thanks to our housing team that have been working on the program as well as the report. Tim Davis, Peter Sasso, Mary Lou Mendonça, Doug The Verge, Orville Joseph, Rita Lombardi, and Ryan Franier for all their efforts. Finally, Boston was sort of showcasing itself to the world with this week's ULI visit. ULI, the Urban Land Institute, which consists of 40,000 professionals in the land use and planning and real estate development realms, brought one of its 2 annual conferences to Boston over at the Convention Center primarily, but they were moving around the city a lot. The BPDA played a significant role. We are gracious, welcoming, informative hosts. So I want to thank our staff who were ambassadors to our visitors with the ULI conference. I know I'm going to leave some people out, and I apologize in advance. I want to thank Victoria Abelina, Mike Christopher, Tim Cherwinski, Raoul DeVerge, Jonathan Greeley, Rich McGinnis, Sarah Meyerson, Devin Quirk, Lauren Shirtliff, and Corey Zengapot for playing significant formal roles in the ULI proceedings this week. And that's it for me. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brian, for that report. Are there any questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. Good job.